A Monday edition of the Sports Bash starts right now here on 97.3 ESPN. I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Henning is producing today's show. What's going on out there? Of course, you can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We are live across all the platforms. You can download the free mobile app and listen to the show wherever you go. Take the show wherever you go. There you go. Game 4 tonight, Game 4 tonight, Sixers and Hawks. We got you covered. Game 3, we'll take a look back at that from Friday night, which was pretty much dominating effort from Sixers from start to finish as they kind of grabbed control of this series. But if we've learned anything about some of the playoffs, not all of them, the Suns swept. We thought at a 2-0 lead that the Nets were in total control of that series. They are now all tied up and in some big trouble with no James Harden and no Kyrie Irving, possibly for the rest of this series here. You know, it's one of those things where you take a look at stuff from such a lens and you're always like, well, the Sixers aren't, they can't beat the Nets. They're not good enough to beat the Nets. And you're like, just let it play out. Always let it play out before you say this is an absolute. And I think we have now found out that the Eastern Conference playoffs, who many believed was a Nets path to the finals, has now opened up for everybody, including the Bucks, who, quite frankly, I have said along the way, I think I'd rather play the Nets than the Bucks. I said this before the series started. I think I prefer to play the Nets over the Bucks. Why? Yes, the Nets are high-powered offense. They're hard to stop. They've got all that. But they don't have much else. And if you watch them the last 2 nights without James Harden and now without Harden and Kyrie, it's just not a deep team, man. They're just not a deep team. I think that the Bucks give the Sixers a little bit more of a problem in terms of they play better defense. The whole Giannis and Ben, you got 2 limited guys. And look, we talked the other day, they need Giannis to score. They're winning games, and Giannis is having big nights for them. He had 30-some points the other night. So sometimes his limitations in losses stand out, and other times his limitations don't matter as much when they're playing good defense. And they played good defense. Part of the reason is because the Nets were missing a couple of key guys, obviously. So this thing has gotten very wide open. Very wide open. With the Nets injuries, excuse me, with the Nets injuries that they have come across, how many people out there have kind of changed their outlook of what they think the Sixers' ceiling may be? Because I would imagine that most of you people out there think that the Brooklyn Nets are the biggest challenge. And now without those 2 guys potentially being in the way, there's a possibility that series goes 7 or the Bucks win that thing. If those 2 guys don't play, there's a possibility the Bucks win on Tuesday and Thursday and clean this thing out. But how many people, because I just got the betting odds sent to me, and those betting odds still have Brooklyn as the leader in the clubhouse to win the whole thing. 12-5, they lead it. The Jazz are second, 13-4. The Suns are next, 7-2. The Bucks are next, 19-4. Then Philadelphia, 11-2. The Clippers are 8-1. And the Hawks are 100-1. I mean, the Hawks are the outlier here. Everybody else, Vegas is saying, has a chance, a realistic chance to win the NBA title. The only team that does not, according to Vegas, is the Hawks. They are 40-1 to win the East. They are 100-1 to win the whole kit and caboodle. But we got so much to zone in on today. You go back to Friday night. Michael Lenhart asked the question, of course, everybody wants to know. Now that Green is out, would you rather Korkmaz or Thibault on the court? Court can shoot, but he doesn't play D, and then vice versa for Thibault. We have a poll question up at 973 ESPN. Get involved and vote right there. And so far, we asked you, who should start in place of Danny Green for the Sixers? Matisse Thybulle, Shake Milton, Furkan Korkmaz, Hill or Maxey. One of those options. And right now, Thybulle is leading the way at 45%, Korkmaz at 37%, Hill or Maxey 11%. Ironically, I thought it was kind of interesting that Shake Milton only has 5% of the vote. I thought most people would say, hey, look, Shake had the big game. Let him get out there and start and go with the hot hand. So there's a lot of ways we could break this down, Michael. And obviously it's a good question. One, you go with Korkmaz. He gives you the scoring. He gives you the shooting. He gives you the spacing that your team so desperately needs that Danny Green provides. So there's a lot of things here. I think all of these options present something a little differently. As we mentioned, one, Korkmaz presents shooting, but he also presents a couple other options and interesting little nuggets. Is that Danny Green is a catch-and-shoot, standstill shooter. He catches in the corner, he shoots. He's not very mobile, moving off the ball. He doesn't do a lot of stuff without the ball in his hand. Korkmaz is more in the J.J. Redick mold, where he's constantly running around, coming off screens. He definitely is a little bit more put the ball on the court than Danny Green is. So Korkmaz definitely supplies the three-point shooting and the spacing. So he's an option there. One. Two, Matisse Thybulle. Obviously, way different type of player. Defensive-minded. And when him and Simmons are on the court together, the Hawks have all sorts of problems. And I know a lot of people just think, Danny Green, not a big loss. This is a big loss. I know he hasn't been shooting the ball all that well, but he shot the ball at a 40% clip during the regular season. And what does that mean? It means the other team has to still account for him. They're not going to just let Danny Green stand in the corner all by himself and shoot it up. And you might say, well, what's the difference if he's missing? Forget the fact that he's missing. His presence is opening up options for other people because the defender thinks that he can make that shot. Why do they think that? Because he made 40% of them during the regular season. Look, in the Washington series, Danny Green hit 5 threes in a game. Another game in the Washington series, he hit 3 threes. Yes, he was not shooting well, but he can easily get hot in any one of these games and have that big game that you kind of need. So I'm not the guy that says, Danny Green wasn't doing anything anyway. This might be a blessing in disguise. You know what else Danny Green has that nobody else has? He has rings. Doc Rivers said it yesterday. He always seems to say the right thing at the right time. How about having his presence on the court late in a big game and now not having that? Those factors are something that really can't be quantified as this team gets deeper and deeper into the playoffs. Yeah, they might be able to beat Atlanta. And guess what? Maybe Danny Green's not the best guy in this particular matchup, but I think Danny Green's a bigger loss than people are giving it credit for. He's a champion. He's got that experience. And quite frankly, how quickly we forget. He's one of the best, if not the best, corner three-point shooter in the entire league right now. So, yeah, he's not shooting the ball well in this round. But how quickly we forget the night he made 5 threes against Washington. How quickly we forget he hit 3 threes in another game against Washington, guys. We are such prisoners of the moment that Danny Green had not shot the ball well in a 3-game span. That happens. Shooters don't make them every single night, every single time. So the Green loss is a bigger loss than everybody I've encountered has kind of given. Some people are actually happy that Green is out. Oh, man, we can now get Korkmaz or we can get Thybulle. Most people I come into want Thybulle to play because they like the defense. The problem when Thybulle plays and starts, now you're limited offensively. And you're limited offensively because you don't have the floor spacer. And now that guy, he doesn't have to go out and defend Danny Green. And even if Danny Green's not making the shot, the defender still thinks he's got a 40% chance of making it. Now that defender can be used in a little bit of a different role. He can be used on Ben Simmons a little bit more. Now you can say, okay, I don't think that Matisse Thybulle is going to consistently hit open shots, and therefore I don't have to guard him as closely. So there's a difference. That's why Korkmaz, you still have to stay with Korkmaz. There's a lot of people out there that just don't like Korkmaz. Look, there are role players in this league. It's okay. He has a role. He makes 40% of his threes. And when he gets going, he had a night the other night, 14 points. He scored 14 points in about 8 minutes. When Korkmaz is going, he's going. He's not a great defensive player, that we know. But the Sixers have enough complementary pieces that they can hide that. And I think in this series, Korkmaz, the way that he runs around without the ball in his hand, is actually more advantageous than Danny Green floor spacing. So that's why I think they'll go with Korkmaz in the lineup over Thybulle, because I think they like Thybulle's role coming off the bench and giving what he provides with the second unit and then paired up with Ben Simmons. I think they want the spacing on the floor with Korkmaz to allow Joel Embiid to have the room to roam. It allows Tobias Harris to have the room to roam. And most importantly, it gives Ben Simmons the options. You know, this is all predicated on what Ben Simmons does really well. And he sets the pace and he sets the tempo. He did that in game 3. I thought it was one of his better games. Offensively, he was aggressive at times, but he pulled back at others. He didn't really get predictable. And if you go back to that game, you know, there was a couple of things that really stand out about Ben Simmons' night, and it's more than the scoring aspect that really stand out. I think, what did he score, like 17 points in the game, 19 points, 18 points, something like that? He did have a good scoring night, did Ben Simmons. But there was a couple differences in that game. The way they used Ben Simmons, they really featured him in the post. And this is where the Atlanta Hawks had no answer. His passing from the post was such a problem that they really don't have, like, they have to pick their poison. They have no answer for Joel Embiid. They double and triple him almost every single time. So now you've got Ben Simmons going one-on-one down in the post, and he's just absolutely having his way. He had 18 points in the game, by the way. But he only shot it 11 times, 11 times in the game. 4 of 8 from the line, 7 of 11 from the field, 18 points in the game, 7 assists. So it wasn't like this 30-point outburst by Ben Simmons, but he did a really good job of taking what they gave him. And I think Doc Rivers and that coaching staff did a good job of coming up with the game plan of saying, look, if they're going to let you take the ball in the post, Ben Simmons, let's go. We'll give it to you there. And I think Doc Rivers mentioned that, hey, they kind of told him at halftime that you could be more aggressive. It's okay in this game. Because I think there's games where Ben, they say, look, we don't need you to score. That we don't have to have you score. So I think Ben kind of takes that to heart. But then there's other times where he takes that to heart, and then they almost have to tell him, hey, tonight we need you to kind of lift up the curtain a little bit and peel back the curtain and become the guy that can put the ball in the basket a little bit more. So it's almost like the Sixers coaching staff, and look, it's not like Brett Brown said, Ben, we don't want you to do anything. No, they tried to get him to be more aggressive and do more offensively. It's just not Ben's game. This isn't like Doc Rivers all of a sudden put pixie dust over Ben Simmons' head and he transformed the player. I just think what Doc has done, that a little different approach than what Brett Brown did is he essentially recognized from the get-go that Ben Simmons doesn't want to be a scorer. He doesn't want to have this huge role in the offense. He would prefer to set other guys up. And Doc Rivers and the coaching staff, I think, embraced that more so. And Brett Brown, and I don't want to say the coaching staff, but yeah, that staff was more, Ben, we need you to be a big-time scorer, or we need you to score more. So they would tell Ben Simmons, hey, we need more scoring. My God, every night in the press conference, Brett Brown would be out there almost begging him to do more at times. You know what I mean? But I thought he played a very good game on Friday night. It was a really good game for him. But there was a lot of other things in the game that really stand out that we're going to kind of highlight here. But the defense has been the big thing in this series. It really switched when they made the switch. I mean, Ben Simmons, again, just absolutely suffocated Trae Young at times. I say at times. Young had 28 points still. He's good. He's going to get his. But remember, they hit 23s in the first game. What did I say? To beat the Sixers, they need to be better than their average. They average about 37%. Well, in the first game, they hit over 37% and they won. They haven't been at that number since. They only made 6 threes on Friday night. I would have to imagine there's going to be a night, maybe it's tonight, maybe it's Wednesday night, where the Hawks start hitting threes again. You know, John Collins 0 for 2, Trae Young 3 for 6, Bogdanovich 2 for 5, Gallinari 0 for 4. Hudrick was 1 for 5. He's a guy that they really depend on to make them. He didn't. So they did not shoot the ball. I think the Sixers had a part in that, but they did not shoot the ball very well. We talked about it on Friday as well. I said, I'd let Trae Young, and God bless him, he pulled up from way out multiple times and made some deep ones. But again, he's only a 34% shooter from three-point range. I give him that shot. Keep going, buddy. I'd rather him from way out, have a night than give open looks to Bogdanovich and Hudrick and that crew. You know, we talk a lot about NBA coaches and their impact. The impact is the adjustment. The players are doing a great job of executing the adjustment. Moving Ben to Trae, moving Ben to the post. 2 moves in this series that Atlanta just cannot counter. So, yeah, we talk a lot. I say the coaches doesn't have as big of an impact as a lot of NBA fans out there. They want the coach fired for everything. They think the coach loses games on almost a nightly basis. I always say the coach has an impact. He has a role in wins and losses. It's just lower on my list. Doc Rivers made a great adjustment, 2 of them in this series so far now. So, yeah, the coach gets the credit for the moves, the adjustment. But if the players don't execute it, it doesn't really matter. He could move Ben to Trae, but if Trae Young still gets 35 points and helps lead them to victory, they made the adjustment. It just didn't work. Doc Rivers gets credit for moving Ben Simmons to the post, but if Ben doesn't execute once he got moved to the post, it doesn't mean the adjustment wasn't a smart one. Means the player didn't execute it. Ben Simmons did a great job once he decided to get into the post, or once they decided to move him to the post. So there's a couple of things we can explore today. We will. There's a lot here. It was an interesting game. He had the 14 points from Korkmaz. He ended up going 27 minutes in the game. That kind of tells me he'll be the guy that starts tonight. I think Korkmaz will get the start, and Thibault will come off the bench. That's just my thought. But I thought Dwight Howard had an underrated, good, solid game. Thibault played great defensively. Milton didn't have as big of an impact coming off the bench. Tobias Harris, I thought, was very solid in the game. Maybe one of the most complete games he's played all postseason long. All right, 609-403. 0973 609 403 0973. Here we are getting ready for game 4. If the Sixers win tonight, they are up 3-1. A loss, we'd be 2-2 coming back to Philly on Wednesday night. Either way, there will be a game 5 on Wednesday, and you can hear them both right here on 97.3 ESPN. Our coverage tonight starts at 7 with the tip-off sometime after 7:30. Tom McGinnis on the call here on your home for Sixers playoff basketball. 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. Don't forget, Mike McGarry joins me in 20 minutes. Paul Hudrick goes inside the Sixers at 3:20 today. The Eagles have added a veteran quarterback. Yep, for the details, right now, go to our website, 973ESPN.com, as the Eagles have signed a veteran quarterback. Is he in play for the backup role? Is he in competition? A word that Nick Sirianni likes to use. Is he in competition to start? He has started 16 games in his career. For the latest details on that, go to 973ESPN.com. Sports Bash here on a Monday. Game 3 tonight on 97.3 ESPN. I will say this. Of all the series, it feels like this one is getting the least amount of coverage and the least amount of buzz. Does anybody else feel that way? Like anytime you're talking NBA playoffs, it's Bucks, Nets seems to be at the top. The Suns have now swept. That Clippers-Jazz series is getting a little something. This Sixers-Hawks series almost feels like, hey, by the way, the number one seed's playing. But it almost feels that way. But I also don't like the way that it feels, that now it feels like almost everybody thinks the Sixers are just going to walk through this thing. And I think tonight's a big night. We're going to find out a lot about this Sixers team. Because did they take the heart and soul out of the Atlanta Hawks on Friday night? Or do they pick up a win on the road, much like the Hawks did in your building? If the Hawks get this one back, you're back at 2-2, and you've turned it into a situation where you would probably have to win another game in their building. Well, you're definitely going to – well, you don't have to because you can win the 2 games in your home building, but you're definitely making it a much different situation. So I think tonight's game is a big one in terms of who the Sixers are. Are they a team that is business, meaning business? Like, hey, let's get this team out of the way, get ourselves prepared for what's next. Or they want to kind of fight through with this Hawks team. And look, I'm not sitting here saying this Hawks team's not on your level. They're not. But they have the ability to win a game on their home court here and make this series a little bit more, distracting. 609 403 0973 609 403 0973. Jeff says Doc's a winner. You already know you can always count on him. Well, no, he's been up 3-1 in a couple of series. I think 3 times Doc Rivers has blown a 3-1 series lead. So even at 3-1, that stat's going to start coming out. If the Sixers go up 3-1, you can look right back to last year where the Clippers had a 3-1 series lead and lost that series. I think Doc Rivers has blown 3-1 series leads. I think it's 3 times in the playoffs. But I think the difference is this Sixers team, and this is what I like about it. I understand that it's frustrating that the Sixers have underperformed. They underperformed last year. I don't know if they underperformed so much as they just had a disappointing roster makeup. Right? It's a very difficult roster to win in the NBA with what they had last year. But I can, understand. I don't know that they underperformed or if it was just disappointing because you hoped for more. They had a good enough roster with the Jimmy Butler team. They lost to a team that was pretty darn good and won the NBA championship. No shame in that. They went 7 games with the team that won the title. And they lost in Toronto and on a quadruple doink. So there's been some disappointing losses, but are those losses part of the reason why this team here right now, because let's be honest, I don't know that any of us thought that the 2018 Sixers team, even if they had beaten Boston, was an NBA Finals team. I don't know that any of us thought that the Jimmy Butler team was an NBA championship team. It was disappointing in the moment that they lost, but I don't think we, in our heart of hearts, thought that they were NBA championship level. This team now could be the byproduct of those losses. The great teams in history needed the losses. The Chicago Bulls, they kept losing. They kept losing. Detroit, knock them off. Finally, they beat Detroit. They go on to win the title. Bad boys. It was the bad boys' time. Jordan and the Bulls, they kept losing. They finally take them down. There's a lot of times throughout history where it's just not your time, but the losses build up and help you out down the road. And I think that's sometimes lost in the sauce with today's fan base. We want to win now. We want to win immediately. The Sixers won 10 games to get Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. They won 18, they won 19, they won 10 games over a 3-year stretch. So because of that futility, when they finally got those guys on the court, fans want it instantaneous championships. Well, that's not realistic. You've got to go through the adversity to get there. And this team has. So I think you got to keep that into consideration, too, when you're thinking about this. Now, another team that's gone through the adversity is the Milwaukee Bucks. They've lost in the Eastern Conference Finals the last couple of times. The Sixers haven't even gotten that far. Their losses have come in round 2. Last year, round 1. But the main ingredients, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and look, those guys are young players, but young in age, they're starting to hit that point. Joel Embiid is there. Joel Embiid is there in terms of he has played. He's 27 years old now. And why seasons-wise, he's not around where Jordan and LeBron were. Jordan and LeBron, I think, played 7 or 8 seasons before they finally won their championships. Joel Embiid was drafted in 2013. Remember, he missed 2 full seasons. So he has played 1, 2, 3, 4. This is his 1, 2, 3, 4. This is his 5th year. He missed 2. So realistically, he's going into his 7th NBA season. Can you believe that? Joel Embiid, if he played his first 2 years in the league without being injured, he would be in his 7th NBA season. Pretty crazy. But after 7 years, in your 7th year, I would think that it's fair to say that Joel Embiid is there. This is it. 27 years old. He's in his 7th NBA season, 5th playing, 7th since being drafted. And Ben Simmons is now in his, I would imagine, his 6th year, and he has played in 5 NBA seasons. He only missed 1 full season. So I think Embiid is there. I think Simmons still has probably a little bit more room for polish and growth. That doesn't diminish that those losses and where they are now. I think this team is at a spot that they can do this. 609-403-0973 over on the text board. Mike, Danny Green has really been a good defensive presence along with his 3-ball, even in this series with his steals and annoyance. Big loss. Yeah, I mean, Danny Green, he had a rough game in game 1 defensively against Trae Young. That's not a good matchup for him. But what he has done, right, what he has done in not only this season, but the Washington series as well, and I think that's a good point that the text messenger brings up. They moved him off of Trae Young, and he's done a good job, doing some of the things off the ball now. I agree. I think Green is a bigger loss than some people give it credit for, and it's because he hasn't been shooting well. If Danny Green is shooting 40% from 3 like he did all season long, except for over a 3-game mini little sample size here, you would be like, oh, man, they lost him? That's a tough loss. How big of a loss is it? And who is the best option to replace him? Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City has covered this Sixers series. By the way, Doc Rivers lost 3 series, went up 3-1 back in 2003 with the Orlando Magic. Remember them? They were the 8th seed that year. And they were up 3-1 against Detroit, who was the 1 seed. They came back and lost to the Pistons, where the Pistons came back and beat Orlando. 2015, he did it with the Clippers in round 2. They were the 2nd seed, up 3-1. They lost to the Rockets. It was a 2-3. And same situation last year in the bubble. They were the 2. They were playing the Nuggets, who were the 3. And they lost to the Nuggets after being up 3-1 in the series. So he has done it in 2015, 2020, and 2003. So just being up 3-1 with Doc Rivers, that will come in. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. McGarry on the other side to take a look at this. The Phillies weekend, they sweep the Yankees, and a historic weekend in local baseball. All right, tonight's game 4. Is the series over after watching Friday night? We thought that about the Nets and Bucks series. That one's all tied up at 2. That one's injury related. Did we see enough from the Sixers to think that they have now figured out this Hawks team and can put this baby away? Plus, who starts for Danny Green? Who's the best option? I gave you the guy I think they'll start. I think it'll be Korkmaz. Right now, at 973 ESPN on Twitter, you can vote and tell us who you want to get that starting spot. Is it even that important? Does it matter who starts the game? Really not. I mean, it matters who finishes the game. Right now, 44% of you are going with Thibault. You want him to get the starting nod. Let's bring Mike McGarry in from the Press of Atlantic City, who's covering this series. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. We got a lot to dive into. Phillies had a positive weekend. There was some great baseball locally over the weekend. Mike is at a game today, so we'll get it all in with McGarry here. What's going on, Michael?
Hey, Mike, how are you? Yeah, I am up at Colts Neck right now, and I'll give you a little scoop. Ocean City up 2-0 in the bottom of the first of the State Group 3 semifinal.
There you go. I just had someone text me, can I get a live update? There you go. Mike McGarry, it's 2-0, Ocean City. I think Tom Finnegan pitching.
That is correct. He just took the mound. Colts Neck's leadoff hitter is up, so we're just underway up here in Colts Neck.
All right, so Mike's got that. 2-0 Ocean City. They lead it. All right. Danny Green hurt. Big deal or not a big deal? It feels like all the fans are almost like, thank God. And then I think they forget that the guy shot 40% from 3, was a big floor spacer for this team. I think it's a bigger loss than the fans are giving him credit for.
Yeah, I would go like this. I would say not a big deal for this series. I think this might be a little bit of a bad matchup for this series. I don't think they need him offensively to sort of close this series out. But I would say going forward, it's a bigger deal than people are giving credit for, exactly for the reason that you just said. I think, against the Milwaukee Bucks or the Brooklyn Nets, they're going to miss him.
All right, so who's the best option to replace him, number 1? Number 2, who do you think Doc Rivers will go? He said he already knows, but he's not sharing it with you.
I think they got to go Korkmaz to continue to space the floor offensively and have that, corner perimeter shooting threat out there. I think they'll start Korkmaz, but I think they'll finish the game with Thibault in place there. So, kind of a hybrid mold there where you start the game with Korkmaz for the offensive reasons, provide spacing, make it easier on Embiid to do his thing, and then you close the game with the defensive Thibault.
Right. So Thibault, obviously, the defensive option. Korkmaz is the offensive option. Is Milton or Hill an option for you at all?
George Hill would have been an option for me, but he just has not played well in this series at all. So if he had played better, I would have said he would have been the guy to sort of take Green's place. But he just does not look good in this series. So I continue to bring him off the bench with that second unit. And I think, in Korkmaz and Thibault, if you combine those two players and what they do well, the outside shooting and the defense, you get pretty close to what Danny Green gives you. So that's why I'd go with those two guys. And the fact that just George Hill has just not played well so far in this series. If he was playing well, I'd think about it. But the fact that he's not, I'd keep him on the bench.
All right, Friday night, that was a dominating performance. They almost took the heart right out of the chest of Atlanta. Now, Brooklyn was up 2-0. We thought that series was over. Did you see enough Friday night to think the Sixers have them figured out and that Atlanta doesn't have an adjustment to counter?
Yes, I did. I think if you look at it now, what are we at? We played 12 quarters of basketball, right? And the Sixers have dominated 10 of those quarters, maybe even 11 of those quarters. Other than the first quarter of game 1, it's been all Sixers. So, you mentioned the Brooklyn Nets. That's a health situation there. James Harden out, Kyrie Irving out. If the Sixers stay healthy, I would think they would be able to roll in the series and wrap it up. Although I would expect, the Hawks to come out tonight and make, a spirited last stand, but I think the Sixers can weather it.
Yeah, now we know Doc has been up 3-1 3 times and coughed up 3-1 series lead 3 times. I don't imagine that would be the case here, but if they go up tonight 3-1, you would think that really shows you, to me, Mike, it kind of stamps that the Sixers are taking this like if they lose this game tonight, it's 2-2. Next thing you know, you've got this whole thing again kind of entering, hey, can Trae Young get going? Because they did not shoot the ball well Friday. They only made 6 threes. And you would think they have one more game left in them where they start bombing away from 3.
Yeah, I think they come out tonight all fired up, obviously sort of like a last stand type of thing, and kind of the way the Sixers began game 2, right? So if Sixers can sort of weather that stand, stabilize the game, I just think the Sixers have too much scoring, too much firepower, and Atlanta has no answer for Embiid, who right now might be playing, of all the guys in the NBA right now, guys left of the NBA playoff series, I don't think there's a guy playing better than Joel Embiid right now.
Yep, and we keep wondering, Mike, can a team win with a big guy as their main centerpiece? This is a 3-point shooting league. This is a wing league. Can a team win a championship with the big man in 2021?
Well, in the Sixers case, I think yes, because, right, they're combining that big man with the perimeter shooting. That's why I think the loss of Danny Green going forward against Brooklyn and Milwaukee might be bigger than what the fans are giving him credit for. But they're kind of taking the best of both worlds. They're taking, old-fashioned big guy basketball and the modern game and sort of combining it together. And I think, you look at around the NBA right now, right? LeBron James is out, the Brooklyn Nets are down to Kevin Durant. We don't know what is going to happen with Kyrie Irving or James Harden. The Milwaukee Bucks certainly don't look imposing. I mean, I like Utah. I think Phoenix is pretty good, but does anybody think the Sixers can't win a series against those teams? I mean, the way Embiid is playing, the Sixers really have a real open window. This is a real opportunity to have an NBA title here.
I agree that things that now, if Harden and Kyrie are done in this series, and I don't see how Harden is back, and I would be pretty surprised if we see Kyrie at least the next 2 games. Are the Nets done?
I don't know if they're done in this series. I'm not going to undersell, how good Kevin Durant is. I think, I said before, I think Joel Embiid might be playing the best of any player right now in the NBA playoffs. I think Kevin Durant is a 1A when you look at that. So maybe he can get them past the Bucks, but with the Sixers, if Brooklyn, however, doesn't have Harden or Kyrie Irving for a series against the Sixers, I think Brooklyn would be in trouble there. With 2 of those guys, I like Brooklyn. But just one, then I think the Sixers got the edge.
At AC Press McGarry, and he is live at the Ocean City baseball games. It's still 2-0, by the way, Mike?
Still 2-0, but I think the Cougars of Cold Snake have the bases loaded here, so we'll see what happens.
All right.
A long way to go so far.
All right, that's first inning. We'll get some more updates before the end of this conversation, but I do want to go to the Phillies this weekend. We were kind of leaving them for dead. They get a sweep over a team that's almost got more problems than they do in the Yankees, but did you get a feel this weekend, Mike, that the Phillies are about to kind of, we've been waiting. All right, are you going to go on a little winning streak here and make us believe, or are you going to kind of go on a losing streak here and kind of like get it, quit getting on the middle seesaw here? Give us one or the other. Are the Phillies about to turn things around?
I don't know, but if they didn't go on that winning streak, the 4 in a row, the 3 walk-ups, they'd certainly be in a lot of trouble. If they had lost 3 and 4 in a row and heading out to the West Coast trip that they've got against a very good Dodger team and a good Giant team. Now, the Phillies kind of, it sort of cracks me up a little bit the way local Philadelphia sports fans, talk about the Phillies. The way people talk about the Phillies, you think they were 10 games under 500 and buried in last place. I mean, they're a game over 500, which is not great, but they're in second place in the National League, 3 games back from that. Division. I don't think the Atlanta Braves are having the year that we're going to have. Washington seems to have some trouble. They're chasing the Mets. I don't think the Mets are the 27 Yankees. So, I think Philadelphia is in relatively good shape. But when you talk to some Phillies fans, you think they were 10 under, or they give you the approach where the Phillies better be, in first place by 10 games when Eagles training camp starts, or I'm not going to pay attention to the Phillies anymore. So,
I think
they are what they are, basically.
Well, that's the problem, though. It's almost like I think people have acquiesced to this is the same team that we've seen the last 3 years where they just kind of hung around, but there's nothing to suggest they're going to rip off 12 out of 15 or 15 out of 17 here. I mean, it just feels like you just keep giving me the same thing that I saw the last 3 years. You told me,
Yeah, I think
right? You told me it was the manager. They changed the manager. That manager's in first place, and you're still stuck in the same spot.
Yeah, I think what their other issue is that there just doesn't seem to be a compelling storyline on the team. I mean, Zach Wheeler is having a great season, but I don't get the sense from the Philadelphia fan base that they're pumped up every fifth day when Wheeler takes them out. I don't hear anybody going around saying today's a Wheeler day and things like that. So, and then, hey, this is Bryce Harper's third season. JT Realmuto's been here a while. Both are having solid years, but both are being hurt. So there hasn't been a really compelling storyline to hook the fans' interest. But yet, I mean, they are a game over 500. They are 3 games back in the division lead. They're in contention right now. I think that they're worth paying attention to at this point. Now, whether they're going to go out and win 15 in a row, I just don't think they're that type of team. I think they're going to continue to be what they are, 2 steps up, 1 step back, and kind of in playoff contention to the end of the season. And we'll see if they can have a September, instead of a September collapse, a September where they play well.
All right, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. He is at the Ocean City Colts net game. That's because Ocean City beat Mainland in, Mike, which was one of the most unbelievable baseball settings and scenes on Saturday afternoon. I guess that you've been covering baseball in this area for however long. Have you ever seen a crowd as big as that?
No, I haven't. 5 or 6 deep, along the right and left field line, student sections out in the outfields. We never see student sections in baseball games for the most part. So really just a fantastic atmosphere. And, I give credit to Ocean City. Gannon Brady, the starting pitcher, does a great job. They get him that 3-0 lead. And Gannon Brady's a guy who's pitched in big games since he was 12 years old. And you had a feeling that once Ocean City got up, Gannon was going to be able to get the Red Raiders home.
Yeah, and he actually had the double, too, that really broke that thing.
Right, 2-run double, right.
Yeah, he had the 2-run double. They won it 6-1 over Mainland to advance. It was, Mike, I mean, it was almost like a football game to some extent. I mean, both sides were just mobbed. I mean, all the way, the outfield fences were filled from almost center field all the way around. For both sides, it was like half red and the half green. I mean, it was a scene, man. I was shocked at how many people ended up filling that place up. And for the most part, you had the 1 inning when Ocean City got 3 on the board, and Mainland just could not get anything going. But man, it was something, man. If you had not seen a high school baseball game before, a crowd like that, you might not see another one like that ever again.
Yeah, I don't know if you are, because, both these teams are kind of senior dominated and, have been in our, high school consciousness for 4 years. Ocean City has a lot of well-known athletes on the high school level with Gannon Brady, Joe Rapetti, So both teams have built up big followings. And Mainland Ocean City, for where we are along the shore, I mean, that's the premier rivalry. It's a big deal when they meet in any sport. It's an even bigger deal when they meet for a championship. Yeah. So, and that was the case on Saturday. And I like what you said there. It kind of reminded you of a football crowd, because that's what I thought of when I saw the people sort of circling the outfield fence there. It's like people standing along the fence of a football game, basically. So you're exactly right. It was kind of like a football crowd type atmosphere.
It really was. It was cool to see. And, of course, Ocean City going on right now. So it was 2-0. You said the bases were loaded. Did they get out of that?
Yeah, they kind of got out of it. It's 2-1. Ocean City batting in the top of the second as we speak. So Ocean City up 2-1, coming to the plate here in the top of the second.
All right. Follow at AC Press McGarry. He is up at the game. People are saying, how can I get updates on this game? There you go. At AC Press McGarry. He is up there, Ocean City and Colts neck in that Group 3 baseball game. And he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. All right, Mike. Thanks, man.
All right. We'll talk to you on Wednesday. Thanks, Mike.
Yep. Mike will be back on Wednesday to recap the Sixers and the Hawks game number 4. And then, of course, the Phillies stuff out west as well. We always like to spin things around. And, of course, he's covering that big Ocean City game today. It is 2-1. Ocean City leads in the first inning. So there you go. Already some scores on the board out there. And we will keep you updated. You can follow Mike on Twitter at AC Press McGarry and get some more updates on that particular game. It was a scene. If I would imagine if you're listening, there was a lot of people at that game on Saturday. It was one of the biggest high school baseball crowds I get. I mean, Mike said he's never seen one that big. I haven't certainly either. I don't attend a whole heck of a lot of high school baseball games due to my work schedule. They play at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, typically during the course of a regular season. I have been to a couple of, bigger state games in the past, but I have never seen a game like that. I would estimate, I don't know, maybe 1,500, 2,000 people were at the game on Saturday. Maybe, I guess. I mean, they literally went from the third base, where the third base side, all the way around to about center field. And then on the other side, it went, boom, all the way. And it was 4 or 5 deep on both sides. Lawn chairs, beach chairs. Great scene over there. All right, 3 o'clock here on the Sports Bash. We take you till 6. Busy hour. Paul Hudrick inside the Sixers. The Phillies this weekend, by the way, picked up a sweep of the Yankees. We talked about the Phillies and Yankees on Friday's show. Two mediocre teams. The Yankees second in payroll. Phillies fifth. Phillies with a couple of come-from-behind victories. But this is a big week for the Phillies. We'll talk to Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad at 4:40 tonight about this Phillies team as they head out there. As Mike said, is he right? Mike McGarry was on with us last hour, and he kind of suggested that, the Phillies fans are kind of being too tough on this team. They're in this race. I mean, they are in the race. He is right about that. If you take a look at it, there is no standout team in the National League East right now. I mean, the Phillies are right there into the mix. They're only 3 back of the New York Mets. They've won 7 out of 10, the Phillies have. They won 4 in a row, 7 out of 10. And look, I don't know, at what point do you just say the Braves are just an average team? We're 63 games into the season, and Atlanta is 3 games under 500. The New York Mets at 32-25. I don't know, are they going to start pulling away from the Phillies here? I think, look, where I am at with the Phillies, and they're a game over 500, so I'm not all that excited. But I think this stretch of games is extremely important for this team. And I say that not in, look, they can make a trade or turn things around at some point, and maybe, we revisit this conversation a month from now, and you say, see, you were wrong about that, because I know people like to keep score. But I will say this. You've got 3 with the Dodgers. That's a good team. All right? So you got to figure out a way, somehow, some way, to get 2 out of 3 out there in L.A. against the Dodgers. So you're playing the second-place Dodgers, who are the defending World Series champions. You've got 3 in San Francisco. So you have a 6-game road trip against 2 of the best teams in baseball and the 2 best teams in the National League. San Francisco has 40 wins, tops in the National League. Los Angeles has 39 wins, which is second best in the National League. And here's a problem for the Phillies. If San Francisco sticks around in this race, which right now at 40-25, don't have much of an indication that they're going anywhere. Gabe Kapler's bunch can score. They've got excellent pitching. Their roster doesn't say they're a playoff team, but everything else about them says they are. But here's the problem. If the Phillies don't win the East, are they really better than the Dodgers or the Padres? Probably not. And you would think that the 2 wildcard teams, if San Francisco hangs on in the West, now they're only a game up over the Dodgers right now. But this is why it's kind of important. You need to try to get San Francisco out of that spot, because you would imagine the Dodgers and the Padres are here to stay. Now, keep in mind, over in the Central, you've got Milwaukee, Chicago, and I think the Cincinnati Reds, who have won 8 out of 10, are a lot better than they've played so far this season. And the St. Louis Cardinals have been horrible. They're 1-9 in their last 10 games, the Cardinals, and that puts them a game under 500. Think about this. The Cardinals have won 1 out of the last 10 and have the same amount of wins as the Phillies do. So this is an important stretch for a couple of reasons. One, you've got the Dodgers, as I mentioned, the second best team in the National League right now, record-wise. You've got the 49ers. The Giants, who are the best team in the National League. But here's another thing. In these series, you've got Howard pitching tonight, you've got Eflin, and then Wheeler. Velasquez, Nola, and then back to Howard. In those series, you have some of the pitching advantages. So you've got to take advantage of the situations when you have Wheeler. Now it's Wheeler versus Kershaw. I'm not saying that Kershaw stinks by any stretch, but he's not the same Kershaw. Wheeler right now is better than Kershaw. In fact, if you were voting for the Cy Young Award right now, I think Zach Wheeler has to be the second guy behind Jacob deGrom. Seriously, Zach Wheeler, if you've taken a look at his numbers, you might say, are you kidding me? He's number 2 in the Cy Young race. He might be. He's got a 2.29 ERA, 112 strikeouts in like 90 innings, and his whip is 0.90. I mean, tremendous season that Zach Wheeler's having. So when he pitches, the problem is they don't win a whole heck of a lot. Nola threw a gem yesterday. It was finally one of the best Nolas we've seen. You know the last time Nola pitched a good game, and I'm not kidding, was back in April. The last time Nola pitched an all-star level game was back in April. He beat the Braves. Remember the game he threw the shutout? He had a 2-hit shutout with 10 strikeouts in that game. It's the last time Nola's giving you an all-star effort. But here's the stretch of games real quick. It's the Dodgers and the Giants all on the road the next 6. And by the way, the Giants series, now this is interesting. It's the Giants series, right, Josh? So this is interesting. Although ESPN has that game on ESPN Plus. That's very interesting, don't you think? Right? Because there was an announcement today, and I know this is going to be interesting. We have this conversation a lot, but this is the way of the world. I mean, hey, look, Saturday afternoon, I called a baseball game that aired exclusively on YouTube, right? And we had over 5,000 people watch the game. So people are finding it. You just got to get used to it. The Phillies game, now the Phillies have played some games exclusively on YouTube. But this game, the Giants-Phillies, will be broadcast exclusively on Peacock. I could see people in their cars right now like, wait, what? So Peacock is NBC's streaming service. So this weekend for the Giants-Phillies series, it will be, by the way, I love John Miller. John Miller's calling the game. He's the Giants play-by-play guy. So it'll be John Miller, Mike Krukow, John Kruk, and Jimmy Rollins will be the broadcast team. But these games, now, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong here, they will not be airing on NBC Sports Philadelphia. You cannot just turn your television on and watch these games.
No, and the way, if you read the press release, the way it reads is that it will not be. It may not be available on the My Teams app either, because they want you to stream it through the Peacock app, which they're saying is available for Apple and Android devices as well.
So, to watch the Phillies game, now, keep this in mind too. Because they're out west, the one game's at 9:45, but the other two games are both 3:30 in the afternoon, Eastern time.
Right.
So it's not like on Saturday night at 10:30, you're sitting there having to watch Peacock. This is Saturday and Sunday in the middle of the afternoon. So the 3 Phillies games this weekend are all only going to be exclusively on the Peacock app. That's going to be interesting.
What's also interesting is that for most people who have Xfinity already, because maybe they want to get NBC Sports Philadelphia.
Okay, go ahead.
They already have free access to Peacock.
So what do you do if you're like me and I have YouTube TV?
Well, you're going to have to go download the Peacock
I do have Comcast Xfinity, but I have both.
Right.
So let's just say I only had YouTube TV.
Right. Or maybe you're someone who has DirecTV and you maybe have the MLB TV package or something like that. You're going to have to download the Peacock app. I'm assuming there might be like a free subscription period that if you haven't already activated it, maybe you can like work around having to pay for it and then cancel after 7 days. They usually been offering that for WWE subscribers. Their big thing right now is because they had WWE on there. They're trying to get people to sign up to the free period and then lock them in long term.
Wow. Well, I mean, look, I know people get up in arms about this kind of stuff, but this is the wave, man. It was on YouTube. People went crazy. Put it this way. The game on YouTube is simple to find, right?
I mean, for someone who understands YouTube, yes. For someone who has experience.
I mean, my father, I'm not saying it's not technologically challenged, but I mean, my father's watch stuff on YouTube all the time. I mean, I would imagine that
YouTube
of all of the quote unquote, let's say non-cable options.
Yeah.
Finding a game on YouTube has got to be the easiest and most accessible one.
Theoretically, I mean,
you don't need a subscription.
My dad also has YouTube as well. Not YouTube TV, just regular YouTube.
Right, but I'm saying you don't need a subscription to YouTube.
Right.
It's not like Facebook. You have to actually have a Facebook account. If you want to go, you have to sign up for Facebook. Now, most people have that, but let's say you're a 65-year-old man who doesn't have Facebook.
Well, hold on a second. If you have a Gmail account, you actually already have an automatic YouTube account. So technically, if you sign in with your Gmail, you can save the link or save the platform.
Yeah, but YouTube is just a website. You can go to the website and get. I'm saying the game being on Peacock, you actually have to have that app.
You have to have the Peacock app,
and you have to at least have Xfinity to access it.
Or if you don't have Xfinity, you have to download the app separately.
But don't you have to pay for Peacock?
The idea is they want you to sign up for Peacock long term.
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
I'm assuming, though, that because they've been doing the promotion for WWE, they do this like, hey, sign up for free, try Peacock, watch the WWE this weekend, and then, they try to bring you in. They try to lure you in.
Right. But if you're somebody who doesn't have a good, you're not technological. Billy Schwein, for instance, okay? He's probably going to have a little bit of an issue trying to find this
Billy
game.
Is going to be screwed.
I mean, because you got to download the app. You then have to sign up for
Billy
the app.
Have Xfinity?
Probably.
So if he does,
but even so, you're still telling somebody
you got to go to the
game,
app menu.
Even though you have Xfinity, you can't watch it on cable television.
Correct.
You need to download this app. Now, I have Xfinity.
You have the X1?
Yes,
okay.
And I think if you go and hit
go to the
menu and go to the app section, the Peacock thing is there.
And by the way, it's the first one. It's the first featured app on that menu. So for certain people, that should be pretty easy to find as long as you go to the app menu.
Yeah. It's just, this is going to be, I'm interested to see, because here's a question that I have is this the precursor to, there's a lot of people who think like the regional sports networks are in some trouble and that they might be, NBC Sports Philadelphia has been cutting people left and right, So at what point do these regional sports things just go away and they just decide, hey, if you want to watch a Phillies game, a Sixers game, a Flyers game, you got to watch it on Peacock?
That's one question. The other question is that we know that a lot of these teams make a lot of money from these regional sports network deals, separate from the national deals. So, for example,
the Phillies make a bundle from NBC Philadelphia for airing
Phillies
their
are
game.
top 10 in baseball in terms of regional network money. So are the Padres, for example. If the money's still coming in, you can't alienate that money for those teams individually. So is it one of those situations where they start working around it? Do they make it so that maybe an organization like NBC Sports Philadelphia can no longer have a My Teams app and it has to be on Peacock instead? So you can still watch the game on regular television because of the carrier agreement, but do they say, you got to get rid of that My Teams app because we're going to have this exclusive agreement with Peacock?
That's going to be interesting. Now, Todd in Briggsea says, great job, MLB. Let's make these games even harder to find for folks who aren't tech savvy. Perfect example of why it's not the national pastime. Here's the counter to that. Baseball's problem isn't with the older crowd. They need to get the younger crowd who doesn't watch cable television. So they're saying, we need to be putting our games on the platform where younger eyes are. They're not watching cable. They're watching YouTube or they're on apps. So let's try to put these games on apps where younger people are going. I don't know what's on Peacock that a younger crowd might go to.
I mean, maybe you could argue that, WWE's on there, so you might try to draw in those people. Honestly, from my experience, I think Peacock is one of the weaker platforms in terms of content.
Yeah, I mean, I'm imagining they carry a lot of NBC.
It's all the old NBC stuff on there, but it's not all of the older NBC.
The Office is on there, right?
The Office is on
Seinfeld?
there, right? I have to double check if Seinfeld is exclusively on there. I think they had some sort of conflict issue with that.
Sports Bash, okay. Well, Phillies, Giants, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, exclusively on Peacock. Don't say I didn't warn you. Brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. I called a high school baseball game Saturday. I did the OC Mainland game exclusively on YouTube, and over 5,000 people found it. So people are finding it. People are getting used to doing this. Our show's live, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can watch the Sports Bash live each and every day, including right now. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. A lot of people getting involved in this Peacock conversation, by the way. We'll get to those. But when we come back, it's Inside the Sixers with our Sixers insider, Paul Hudrick from 97.3 ESPN.com. All right, 322 here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, live video streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Our Sixers insiders, Paul Hudrick. And he, like all guests, appear via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Sixers and Hawks, Game 4 tonight. The coverage starts at 7. Tom McGinnis has the call at 7:30, but my anticipation is the tip-off will be around 7:48. That's just a guess. Paul Hudrick's with me. We got a lot to get into here. Game 3, look back, but there was an injury in that game, Paul, and I guess the big question will be, I know Doc says he knows who it is. He's not telling you. What is your guess on who will fill out the starting lineup tonight?
I, along with a lot of people, think it's going to be Furkan Korkmaz. That seems to be the way that Doc has gone really throughout the season. It seems like that's kind of the way he's like to go because of a few different things. I think part of it is he likes, George Hill, Matisse Thybulle, Shake Milton. He likes all of them in their bench roles. He kind of likes to keep them all there. And then the obvious is the shooting. And, Ben Simmons and Furkan Korkmaz lineups, when they're together, have been really good this year. With Korkmaz's ability to shoot and get hot, it's been huge for their spacing. And I think that might help them. And when you look, Mike, defensively at what it would look like against a team like the Hawks, Korkmaz will be okay. I would be much more concerned if it was, say, the Brooklyn Nets or the Milwaukee Bucks. But against the Hawks, I think Korkmaz will be okay. So, yeah, to me, everything leads to it being Korkmaz, but Doc has fooled us before, so we'll see.
So what did the Sixers do with Green? In Game 1, he went to Young. What did they do with him after the adjustments that they made? And can Korkmaz fulfill that role?
Yeah, I mean, that's so, he'll I would anticipate the Hawks possibly starting Kevin Huerter in this one. I feel like that's like the move that's I've been hinting at, and it seems like it's almost inevitable. With DeAndre Hunter out, they went to Solomon Hill. They used Tony Snell at times, but like to me, Huerter's got to be the guy that's got to play big minutes. And when you actually watch Game 3, Korkmaz held up really well against Kevin Huerter. He actually also got Kevin Huerter in foul trouble. So that's, to me, that with Korkmaz, that's always my concern is on the defensive end. To his credit, he has become much better, much more focused on that end. He knows his limitations, and he does a really good job of getting in better position because of those limitations, kind of anticipating where guys are going to go. So I think, I imagine, that's the same role he's going to fill with Danny Green. It's going to be, with the second unit, sometimes Korkmaz, will handle the ball, run some pick and roll, what have you. But I imagine it's going to be more like Danny, where it's going to be movement off the ball, finding the open spots, finding that spacing so that, Joel, Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, they can all operate. And it's Furkan's job to just have his hands ready and be ready to fire.
The other option, I guess, would be Matisse, right? And obviously there's a lot of fans who prefer Matisse because of the defense, and some people just don't like Korkmaz. But Doc likes bringing him off the bench, and it seems like he only likes him in like 17 to 20-minute spurts. So that's why you don't think they'll go with him in the lineup?
Well, and it's too, Mike. It's not. I think we all, and we're all guilty of it. Sometimes we all focus on too much on who starts games and not enough on who finishes games. So yes, Furkan Korkmaz might play the first 6-7 minutes of the game tonight, but that doesn't mean he's going to play the last 6-7 minutes of the game tonight, and that's what's more important. So that's where you might see Matisse Thybulle, when they really need to get stops on Trae Young down the stretch, or Bogdanovich or whoever he winds up guarding. That's probably most likely where you'll see Thybulle in that stretch. I think Doc, I think when you're looking at the way to get off to a fast start, I think it could start, Korkmaz is the kind of guy who is lightning in a bottle. We saw in Game 3 alone, he comes off the bench, boom, scores 11, 13 points in a really quick burst and really kind of changed the tide of the game. If you remember that Toronto game on the road where he scored 11 points in the first quarter again, and then the Sixers just kind of led and coasted the rest of the way. I think that's where it stems from. I think he thinks that if they can capitalize, if Korkmaz comes in and is hot right off the bat, right, that can get them off to a good start. And then you kind of almost use Matisse as your closer to really shut the door and not allow Atlanta to get back in the game.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mentioned that earlier is, it seems that, whoever they start doesn't necessarily mean. And I think if they have lead late in the game, they're going to probably stick with that defensive minded. Paul, Game 3, it seemed that the Sixers really took some of the heart away from Atlanta. Atlanta did not shoot the ball well, only 6 threes in the game. What was the big adjustment that the Sixers made in Game 3 to really change the feel, I feel like, of this series?
I really think it was just more of the same from Game 2. Honestly, I think that they just now it's the one thing I think the Hawks had in their obviously that first half of Game 1, the Hawks came out, punched him in the mouth. The Sixers didn't have an answer for Trae Young. But then in Game 2, I felt like the only advantage the Hawks really had was in that first half, 32-0 bench points. Now, all of a sudden, since that game, the Sixers are getting contributions from their bench. So now, if you're the Hawks, it's kind of where are your answers? The Sixers have found a solution to at least slowing down Trae Young a little bit, whether it's Ben Simmons or Matisse Thybulle and the way they play team defense to really contain him a little bit. As you mentioned, Mike, they hit 23s in Game 1. They only hit 6 in Game 3. And I think, we talked to Matisse Thybulle yesterday, and it was, he was asked, is that a point of emphasis? He's like, yeah, it is. But at the same time, it's just because we're playing better. We're playing better defense, and a byproduct of that is they're not getting those open looks because we're rotating better, we're helping better, we're being more disciplined. And I think I just think what's happening, Mike, is that the Sixers are a better team. Flat out. There's a reason why they were the 1, the Hawks are the 4. Like, that's the reality of the situation, is the Sixers are the better team. And I think that's all we've seen play out. I think the Sixers have really just asserted their will. Of course, the third quarter, when the Sixers really, stepped on their necks, the Hawks kind of thought maybe they had something, slowing down Joel Embiid by doubling him, paying more attention to Tobias Harris. They do all that, and then Ben Simmons kills him. So I think that's the thing, is that the Hawks are going to keep trying to make adjustments, but I just don't think they have any adjustment that the Sixers don't have a counter for.
Hey, Ben Simmons, speaking of him, I thought one of the big things was, too, they made the adjustment in Game 2 to put him on Trae, and that's helped out, and obviously it carried over to Game 3. But offensively, they went with him in the painted post area a little bit more. And we talk about they don't have an answer for Joel Embiid there. They certainly don't have an answer for Ben Simmons if they're going to feature him in that spot.
Well, yeah, look up and down the Hawks roster, and to me, this is the biggest area where they were missing a guy like a DeAndre Hunter, who is, I think he's like 6'8" and has a 7'2" wingspan. That's the kind of guy you want guarding Ben Simmons. Would he be stopping Ben Simmons? I don't know that. I don't know how that would look, but I'm very sure that he would offer a lot better of a matchup than John Collins, who quite frankly just doesn't have the lateral quickness or the defensive acuity in general to hang with him. Danilo Gallinari is just way too slow. Ben can blow by him whenever he wants. Anyone else is just going to be too small, whether it's Bogdanovich, whether it's Herter, whomever, Solomon Hill, name a guy. They're all too small. So, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is with the Sixers and what they've done really all season long, what they've done well and what they've done well in the series is they find matchups, they find mismatches, and they exploit them. So, okay, Hawks, you want to double team Joel Embiid? You want to pay more attention to Tobias Harris? Okay, Ben Simmons, here's the ball on the post. Go to work. And I do think that Ben Simmons just has a confidence about him when he's doing that. Especially when we talk about like those matchups, he can either take the guy off the dribble, he can pound the back door in the post, or he can find outlets, and find things off movement. And I think the fact that him and Joel Embiid have really developed a chemistry. You saw that alley-oop. That's just great offense. That's just two guys being synced up, knowing where each other is going to be on the floor. So it's just, again, it just goes back to I don't think that the Hawks have enough counters to what the Sixers are able to do.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And you wrote about it at 97.3ESPN.com. It was kind of, hey, when the Sixers needed Ben Simmons, he kind of stepped up because the first half he had not done much, but Doc Rivers thought there was an opportunity for him to do more. And it's almost like, I kind of say like, I think the Sixers coaching staff should be given credit for acknowledging that Ben's not a scorer. So, okay, he doesn't want to score. We don't want to ask you to score. But if we do need you to score and I ask you to, I need you to turn it on. It was almost like he hit the button. We need you to score. And Ben said, you need me to score? You asked me to score? All right, I'll give you more.
Right. And I think this is one of those things where we forget about Ben Simmons' age at 24 years old and, still very young in his NBA career. It takes guys time to figure out, all right, this is my chance. Like I have these mismatches. I need to score, or this is my chance. And like you said, the coaching staff has rightfully recognized he is not the scorer. He is a guy who can facilitate. So you want him to find Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris, who's averaged 30 and 20 points a game, respectively. You want him to find Seth Curry and Danny Green when he's in the lineup, who are over 40% for three. That's what you want Ben Simmons to do. But there are opportunities, like in this series, and like when the defense is paying a lot more attention to your scores, that Ben Simmons needs to do something different. He needs to score the basketball. Now, to your point, at halftime, he needed to kind of be told that. He needed to be nudged. The hope is as he gets old, as he gets more mature, as he figures some things out, he'll just see it on the floor and recognize it and know it. And I think that's part of the growth. I think that's part of his maturation as an NBA player, as an NBA playoff player. Because this is really, I mean, to me, Mike, that third quarter, that is the most dominant quarter I've ever seen Ben Simmons play in the playoffs. Like, he took that game over. He like, you talk about like why the Hawks got demoralized. It's because Ben Simmons told them, nah, you're not winning this game. Like, basically, he also, like, on top of the offense, held Trae Young to 1 of 4 shooting in the third quarter. So, like, he just dominated that game in that third quarter. And from there, the Sixers just took over and won the game.
Hey, I don't want to gloss over that Danny Green is hurt, because I, for one, think that he has been an important piece. He hasn't shot it well. He hit 40% this year. The spacing, they still have to account for him, even if he's not. That helps everybody else out. Are people downplaying the importance, not to mention his voice? I think Doc said something the other day, is he always says the right thing at the right time. I think people are just downplaying how much losing Danny Green. So what do you think? Is that something that might be felt in this Hawks series? I mean, I think talent-wise, maybe not, but if they want to make a legit championship run, do they need him back?
In this Hawks series, I think they're fine. I really do. I think they have enough depth, enough talent. When you talk about, probably an all NBA type defender in Matisse Thybulle that you have the luxury of being able to throw out there. When you have a Furkan Korkmaz who can get hot, even a Shake Milton or, George Hill, who, did not play well in game 3, but has been pretty solid to start the playoffs. When you have those options, you probably have enough that you'll be okay and you'll be able to get through this series of the Hawks. I still think the talent level is just not up to snuff where I think the Sixers can overcome that Danny Green absence and be okay in this series. Against the Brooklyn Nets, for instance, if the Brooklyn Nets can even get healthy enough to win their series, that's where you're going to run into issues, because they have 3 explosive offensive options, and you need all the solid perimeter defenders you can get. And I think Danny Green matches up very well with James Harden. So I think that's a big thing where I look, where could they miss Danny Green? I think that's where it is. In this series, though, I think they'll be okay. And Danny Green, I think the big thing is, Doc Rivers was asked about him still being around the team, and obviously he will be, because he's almost like an extra coach right now. I mean, he was almost like that on the floor, because he is in guys' ears, because he's not afraid to get on guys' butts and let them know, hey, we need this, hey, we need that. He's not afraid to tell us, the reporters, hey, we didn't do this well enough, hey, we need to be better at this. And they need that. They need a guy like that who's going to hold them accountable. I'm sure he'll still be doing that, but it is different, I think, when it's coming from a guy who's actually in the game and when he's on the sideline. But they will feel his presence at some point, missing it, I'm sure, down the line.
All right, so no Danny Green. We think it's going to be Thybulle Korkmaz in the starting lineup. And I guess you mentioned Hill and Milton. Would they be options at all to play at the start?
My guess would be no, but I'd be on board with George Hill for a couple different reasons. One,
play better with the starters.
What's that?
He seems to play better with the starting unit.
Right, and that's I'm thinking, game 3 he really struggled, so this would be a good opportunity to have him play with the starters, get him some wide open looks that he can hit, and he can take a look at the basket and see the ball go in a few times, and that could help him. And then plus, Mike, let's say you win this series, if you do, and then you have to play the Brooklyn Nets in the next round. I don't think you can start Furkan Korkmaz against the Brooklyn Nets. George Hill, though, that's a viable option. You can start George Hill against the Brooklyn Nets because he can defend, he can hit an open look, and he's got some stuff off the dribble. So, personally, that's probably what I would actually do. But I think with Doc Rivers, what he really likes about George is that he's a veteran, he's stable, he's calm, and I think he likes the idea of having that to play with the kind of the bench unit and some of the younger guys to kind of provide some stability. So I think he likes him more in that role. But if it were me, I would start George Hill.
Paul Hudrick at Paul Hudrick on Twitter. If Atlanta has one adjustment they can make here, I don't know. Do you take Capella off the floor and just try to get Embiid in some matchup problems?
I don't know if that's the solution. I would say a couple different things. One, like I already mentioned, I would be starting Kevin Huerter. I mean, he's been playing big minutes anyway, but I would be starting Kevin Huerter and having him play like 38 to 40 minutes. I mean, I think that would be one thing. And then to your point, I would go small, but I would go small with the bench unit. I would force Doc Rivers to either have to play I would play John Collins at the 5 when Capella's off the floor, and I would either force Doc Rivers to have to go back to Joel Embiid or play Ben Simmons at the 5. Now, I don't know how big of an advantage that honestly is for the Hawks to have John Collins and having to contain Ben Simmons as a 5 and them becoming smaller. I don't know if that necessarily helps the Hawks. So, but those are the two adjustments I think are worth making. And then I don't know. To me, do you let Joel? I heard Barkley bring up this point. I don't know if I 100% agree with it, but like, do you let Joel Embiid just go off and not double him and not let the rest of the team, keep the rest of the team down, kind of let Joel Embiid do his thing and focus on everyone else? Maybe you go back to that strategy because, I mean, it worked in one game kind of, or one half, I guess you would say. But I don't know. It's tough because you're talking about a guy in Joel Embiid who's an MVP candidate. And if I were a coach, I would be doubling him on every single touch. But if you're getting to that desperate point where you really feel like you need to change something, that could be another thing too.
Well, and he also has to kind of back up the fact that he said Embiid would be irrelevant in this series.
Yeah. Well, let's be. I love Charles Barkley, but that's
I mean, the guy scored 40. Well, he scored 40, 39, and what he scored last game, 20 something, and they have figured out ways to win with him. I think he's obviously. It's interesting though because we now know that the Nets. That series is 2-2. That one looks like it could be a drag-out type of situation. It's going to at least go 6 games. If the Sixers can get this thing over, there's got to be a little different feel all of a sudden, right?
100%.
As much as everybody thought Brooklyn, I almost think the Sixers match up better with Brooklyn.
In a weird way, I get what you mean because I think the issue with the Bucks is they have 3 no one's stopping Joel Embiid, but Brook Lopez is a better option than anybody the Nets have. And then you look down the line, Tobias would probably have to face either Drew Holiday or Middleton. Neither of those are great matchups. And Ben Simmons would get Giannis, which is a terrible matchup for Ben.
Yeah.
So I mean, from that perspective, a little bit, I do think so. And with the Nets right now, it's just they're just the walking wounded right now. I mean, you have that hamstring for Harden. How is it going to get better? You know what I mean? I mean, this has been lingering for months now, and now he's in a high intensity playoff situation. He's been resting. I'm sure he hasn't been doing any basketball activities for the past week or so. And now you have Kyrie leaving the arena on crutches and a walking boot. So the long-term health of that, and then Durant's was in and out of the lineup all year too. So I mean, and now you're asking him to carry everything. So yeah, I mean, that series is going to be really interesting to see how all that plays out. And if the Nets are able to get through it, how much are they going to have left in the tank when they have to go up potentially against the Sixers?
That game, by the way, Tuesday, Thursday. So you'll have game 5 tomorrow, game 6 on Thursday. We have them both on 97.3 ESPN. The Sixers are tonight, Wednesday, Friday. And hopefully they come home Wednesday, can close this thing out with a win tonight. And Wednesday, they would be done. And, of course, the Bucks and the Nets. I mean, at game 7, you'd be going into the weekend, and that would give the Sixers some a little extra time to get ready for that series. But, yeah, in a weird way, I almost think I'd rather play the Nets if I know that sounds bizarre to say, but you just mentioned the Giannis Simmons. I think that kind of takes a little bit of what Simmons brings to the table. I mean, I guess the Nets could try to go with Durant on him, but does that take away Durant on the offensive end?
Right. And Durant's not, I mean, and Durant he's probably a little bit of an underrated defender, but he's not Giannis. So that would be a different kind of matchup. Yeah.
Yep. So that's what we got in the game tonight. And, of course, you can hear the action right here on 97.3 ESPN at Paul Hudrick. Give him a follow. And, of course, check out all his Sixers coverage at 97.3ESPN.com. All right, Paul. Good stuff, man.
Thanks, Mike. Talk to you soon, man.
And he will be back on Wednesday to take a look back at that one and preview what should be a closeout, we hope, game number 5. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter like many of you are. And I'll tell you what, when we come back, all the people who have been commenting, we're going to go through all the comments that have been coming in for the last hour here. So if you have a comment on the Sixers and Hawks game, get it in now, and I will comment on that. Plus, I see a lot of Philly stuff in the comments section. I see a lot of stuff on the Peacock conversation we were having earlier as well. Somebody actually asked me another question that I will certainly hit on, Jason Downey. You know I will hit on that. If you want to hit me up on the text board, 609-403-0973. By the way, an update on the Ocean City Colts net game. It is 3-2 Ocean City in the fifth. 3-2 Ocean City in the fifth. All right? Keep you updated on that, so don't go away. Sports Bash is live on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, the free mobile app and the live video on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. All right, 347 here on the Sports Bash. I will rip through some of the comments that are coming in on the video stream. If you're watching the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, you can hit us up over there. If you're listening on the radio, you can hit the text board up at 609-403-0973. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Rodney says, I wanted the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Final, but seeing P.J. Tucker's defense and what he might do on Tobias for one could be trouble. Yeah, I think the Bucks defensively present more challenges than the Nets do. That's for sure. I think Paul brought it up. The Nets have no one to defend Embiid. And the Bucks, they've got Lopez who can kind of bang on him for a little bit. He can lean on him, give him some issues there. Antetokounmpo would be a problem for Ben Simmons. I think that would take away some of the things that Ben is able to do so well. And obviously, Ben is a big part, even though he doesn't score a whole heck of a lot every night. He's a big part of their offense. And if you have a 7-foot guy kind of being able to take him away, takes away some of the effectiveness of Ben Simmons. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Let's go and see what else we got here. This one is from Hoarder the Horrific is watching on YouTube. He says NBA teams are 13 and 244. Only 5% of teams overcome the 3-1 deficit. Of those teams that lost up 3-1, Doc coached 23% of them. It's insane, but love him as a coach. Yeah, 13 and 244. Look, if the Sixers go up 3-1, I personally think this series is over. Here's the reason why. The Hawks are a team that is so perimeter-oriented. And this is why it's tough to be such a perimeter-oriented team. Like, the Warriors are such an outlier of champions because it's so hard to be consistently good from three-point range in a 7-game series. You got to be that good that many times. So it's really hard to be the Hawks and shoot 37 to 40% from three-point range. In a 7-game series, you got to do that 4 times. That's hard to do. You might shoot 45% one game, but then last game they hit 21 games, 6 the next. You're more apt to hit 6 or between 12 and 6 than you are from 13 to 20. And the Hawks need 13 to 20 to win this thing. So that's why in a 3-1 series here, unless they go bananas for the final 3 games of that series, I think a 3-1 series is DOA for them. Tony's watching on YouTube. He says, I know it's not popular, but George Hill is a good defender, has potential to make shots. I wouldn't mind seeing him start. Yeah, I like Hill. I like Hudrick. But I have a good point. I like Hill in the Brooklyn matchup more than I like him in this matchup. Because as I said a while back, you could see a situation where you have Ben Simmons on Durant, you have Thibault on Harden, and you use George Hill, say, on Kyrie, something to that effect. Now, we don't know if Kyrie or James Harden are even going to be involved in a series at this point. But George Hill's a guy, and I like the other thing that Paul brought up, is you want to see George Hill become a factor. He hasn't been a factor so far, and I don't think it's because he can't be a factor. He just hasn't been so far. So how about put him in the starting lineup and try to get him kind of infused into that? He's played better, in my opinion, with the starting unit than he has the reserve unit. That's one thing I'll say. I think Hill has been better with the starters than he has with the reserves. He had a nice run the other night in game, I don't think it was game 4 or 3. I think it was the other game that he played. He had some good minutes in that game. Michael is watching. Said, Mike, now that Green is out, would you rather Korkmaz or Thibault on the court? I think starting-wise, I'd go Korkmaz tonight. And I think that's what you're going to see. I think you're going to see Korkmaz later on there. Rodney, Green is obviously better on defense, but Furkan makes the offense more interesting with his ability to put the ball on the floor and drive his floater. Spacing isn't good enough with Thibault starting. Yeah, and one thing is Korkmaz, he moves a lot with the ball. I think I read something over the weekend. I want to say it was Kevin Kincaid from Crossing Broad, I think. who did a whole thing about why Korkmaz they have been with Korkmaz on the floor with the starters. The Sixers have been one of the best teams in basketball, period, just because of the way when he's making shots. Now, Korkmaz is a streaky guy, right? Very streaky. 609-403-0973. Adam says, no matter where the games are aired, you still have to tune in and watch. I don't know what that means. I guess we're talking about the Peacock thing. I mean, if you don't have Peacock, you can't tune in and watch if you don't have the platform. Ian says, I'd love to be able to sign up for each team's yearly TV schedule so I can pay money to watch all the Flyers games, Eagles, Sixers, or pay by the game. I'm not sure if you're being crass or what. You like that option, like an a la carte type of thing? Because essentially, people in this area have Comcast Sportsnet Comcast Cable or Xfinity for one reason, so they can watch the Phillies and the Flyers and the Sixers. Most people say if I didn't watch the games, I wouldn't have Xfinity. Well, I have YouTube TV because you can watch NBC Philadelphia on YouTube TV. A lot of people don't know that. That's why they don't go that route. But I think most people say, look, if you ever go to somebody's house that's not a Philly sports fan, they typically don't have Comcast or they don't have Xfinity, right? How many people you know that aren't Phillies fans? Take a poll of the people that you're friends with who aren't Philly sports fans and see if they have the dish or some other cable situation. Most of the people that are still hanging on to Xfinity is because they are a Philadelphia sports fan. Now, I have YouTube TV, so I can watch the Philly games. I also have Comcast, though. I have both. Why? I don't know. It's probably not smart. I'm probably wasting money. Has something to do with when I signed up, triple play or something when you move and you get the discount, yada, yada. I'm probably getting screwed somewhere. I'm not doubting that. It's probably not smart. Let's see. Jason Downey says, hey, Mike, any new IPAs? Yeah, Jason Downey. Yeah, there is some new IPAs. Now, I've been doing the keto, and I've kind of been finding the low-cal, low-carb IPAs. This is what I'll ask, okay? So there's a beer that I got in Florida. It is from Two Roads, okay? And they make the Wolf Pup. Well, they have a low-cal, low-carb version, and that is called the Hazy Pup. So what I'd like people to do is start to go around to the liquor stores here and start asking them if they can get the Hazy Pup in, because nobody has it around here. That is a tremendous low-carb, low-cal IPA. My girlfriend actually likes the Wee Demon. It's called Wee Demon. Actually, that's Two Roads. The Hazy Pup is Golden Road. I also like Drake's Kickback, Jason. Drake's Kickback. Hard to find, though. I've only found it at 2 spots in this area. It is time for Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, which dropped this morning. A new edition is out. You can get it Mondays and Thursdays at 6 a.m., and it is brought to you by Prop Swap, where America buys and sells sports bets. Sell your bets and make a profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the Prop Swap app today. Well, if you were listening to Football at 4 on Thursday, Adam Kaplan told you that the Eagles had interest in 2 quarterbacks. One of them has signed today, and that is Nick Mullins. He is the new number 3 quarterback, we would presume. I mean, I know Nick Sirianni likes competition, but I would imagine he is not competing for the backup or even the starting job here. Although, Geoff Mosher, Nick Mullins, 16 games of starting experience, so he is a guy you could do a lot worse in that quarterback room than adding Nick Mullins.
You could do a lot worse. I mean, they had that at one point in Jamie Newman, and I only say worse because he did not have any NFL experience. He didn't play last year from opting out. He had questionable mechanics. Here, a kid in Nick Mullins, what's most important, and this is what Adam was emphasizing on the podcast last week, is that not only does he have some starting experience, but his experience with Kyle Shanahan is in a traditional West Coast offense. Well, traditional by today's terms, not necessarily Bill Walshian, but that's what Nick Sirianni is looking to bring here to the Philadelphia Eagles, bring back a little bit of that old West Coast type offense that we saw, in the 2000s with Andy Reid. I'm sure a little bit more modified to today's world, but maybe not as spread as Doug Peterson's offense tended to be. And here's a guy who has experience in it. And I think, Mike, at 26 years old, he's still someone that you can say is both young and developmental. And that gives you an advantage when he's already played in the league 3 years and has 16 starts under his belt, 65% completion percentage. Of course, he's an interception thrower. He has 22 interceptions to 25 touchdowns, but that's why he's a number 3 quarterback and someone who can come in here and try to be developed into your future backup.
Yeah, and I like the fact that he's played 16 games as a starter, so he's obviously got that going for him. But I think it's also a little other hidden gem here, Geoff, is now you have a lot of young receivers. They're not also working with a young, inexperienced quarterback. When they get their reps, they're getting it with a guy who has played. So when John Hightower and Quez Watkins get their reps, they're not getting passes from Jamie Newman. They're getting from a guy who has started in this league.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mike. You're right that third team offense now in practice and scout team offense has a guy who has really good experience, can help these young receivers out and be a leader and who has started games. Now, the question with Nick is that he's coming off an elbow surgery. I believe he's going to be ready by August. It was initially feared that it might be a Tommy John procedure. It was not. So they got over the scary part there. So kind of like with LaRaven Clark, we're going to have to see what this guy can do when training camp starts and how long it might take him to be at 100%. Oddly enough, I mean, I think it was the year they won the Super Bowl behind Nick Foles was the year Nick Foles came over and missed a lot of camp with it. I think it was an elbow issue, if I'm not mistaken. So interesting parallel there.
Right, there you go. A little, I feel like there's oddly enough, Geoff, there are so many parallels to this offseason to the 2017 offseason. Like there's just a lot of these like late under the radar kind of veteran guys. And they keep bringing veteran players in and you keep thinking, what's the message and the mindset in the front office that they keep adding veteran type of players? You know what I mean? It's like, do they think more of themselves than others do? I don't want to say me, because I think I've been one that feels like this team can actually win this division.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's so hard in June to really make predictions when you don't know about injuries and you don't know about talent development, both on the Eagles and other teams. But yes, they've put themselves in a position where they should be competitive. They're strong in the trenches. That's always helpful when you're trying to be competitive. So they've what I think they've done, Mike, is, they've tried to eliminate as many real question marks as possible. It doesn't mean they don't have any. Of course they have some, especially at cornerback and some other positions. But when you went into the offseason and after the Carson Wentz trade and you looked at the 53-man roster, people rightly said, this team stinks. There's just question marks all over the place. And Now you still have question marks about health and certain players, but there are much fewer than there were, say, 2 or 3 months ago. So now you can at least expect them, if things go well and you get the right bounce of the football, to be competitive in every game they should play. I mean, yeah, they're going to play Kansas City and Tampa, and maybe things get out of hand in a game or two. But again, they should be competitive.
Well, it's funny because I went back to the schedule last year, and most of the games, save for maybe 2 or 3, were one-score games. I mean, in the end, as bad as they were last year, they were somewhat competitively in them, even though they were not aesthetically pleasing, which it was tough to watch them at times. But in the end, they were a lot of one-score games last year.
Well, that's the NFL for you. I mean, I think if you look at most teams, I think the Jets had a lot of games that they lost by a touchdown or less, like a one-possession type game, 8 points or less, one possession. And, they were god-awful. So that's why what do we see? About 5 teams every year that didn't make the playoffs the year before that make the playoffs this year, and vice versa, because of the parity of the league.
Right. Well, I saw somebody write the article about 6 teams that didn't make the playoffs last year that can this year. 2 were in the NFC East. One, of course, was Dallas. Mm-hmm. The other one was New York. And I was a little surprised, because I guess I like what New York has done. I just don't like the quarterback. And isn't that a big factor?
Yeah, but if you like Jalen Hurts more than Daniel Jones, I say why? You're just giving him more of a benefit of the doubt?
I didn't suggest that I like one more than the other.
Okay.
I got you. Don't. Daniel Jones to me is at the bottom of the barrel, bottom end of the bottom 5 starters.
I'd love to go back and watch some of the games because as an Eagles reporter who saw him twice, we probably saw some of the better of Daniel Jones. I mean, the athleticism was on display. I think he scored 2 rushing touchdowns against the Eagles, both on read option. It seemed as the year went on, he was getting better. There was that one game that stands out to me against Tampa, where they almost won that game and they lost, where he threw a pass to Golden Tate on 4th down in the end zone. And it was a little late, right? And then somebody broke it up and they lost, but they fought hard that game. They were a good defensive team. They weren't a spectacular offensive team, but they also didn't have a lot of offensive weaponry, I thought. And then they added Galladay in the offseason. I think they picked up a running back in the offseason, and then they drafted Kadarius Toney, right? So just like we talk about the Eagles, about surrounding younger players, ascending players with complementary players who should help them succeed. I agree with you that we should find out more about Daniel Jones. I also don't think he's going to be some kind of awesome elite Pro Bowl level quarterback, but that obviously he's given the opportunity this year to show whether he can make that jump or not.
I agree with that. Yeah, I just, to say that they're going to be a playoff team, I got to see more from the quarterback before I'm ready to jump on there. But I think they've done a good job elsewhere. I do want to ask, Richard Rodgers signed on Friday. He's back. And I guess the follow-up to that would be, is that the signing to replace Zach Ertz, or is that, hey, we are comfortable with Ertz and we like these 3 guys together?
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles are sending a lot of mixed messages here. You've heard Howie, not really commit, saying that he has to get rid of Zach Ertz. But again, I'll say this until it happens. And if it doesn't happen, I'll just scratch my head. I don't understand why Zach Ertz would be on this roster going forward. They don't want to be a 2 tight end type team. If he is on the roster at that money, then you're going to have to play him, which means you don't get to see Dallas Goedert as much as you would want to see Dallas Goedert in a contract extension type of year going into free agency. And then you're not playing the type of offense that you expect to be playing the year after and the year after. And you've got $8.5 million committed to him when you're only going to play him. He's even if Zach Ertz on the team, he's not playing every snap because you're splitting it with guys like Goddard and maybe now Richard Rodgers. So nothing about Zach Ertz being on this team in 2021 makes sense. And I will probably go to my grave thinking that it doesn't make sense. And if you ask me right now, I don't think he'll be on the team in 2021. We'll see what. Go ahead.
You just said something, though, that I kind of makes – if somebody says, well, he's certainly – you're better with him on the team, but you just said they don't want to be a 2 tight end team anymore. I mean, that's something that Doug Peterson didn't have a big problem with. In fact, he featured a lot of 2 tight end setups. The Eagles, I would imagine, with the West Coast look, they don't want to play with 2 tight ends if they don't have to, which means it sounds like you might be better, but before you had Goddard and Ertz on the field a lot together, you would not have that on this offense.
Yeah, I mean, Alshon Jeffrey is a better wide receiver than Travis Fulgham, right? But what happened when Alshon Jeffrey got healthy, making all that money, in a year where the Eagles would have loved to have been able to unload him before the year started. They felt compelled to play Alshon Jeffrey. And what do you have, like 13 catches and 7 in the 6 or 7 games that he played? I mean, it was almost like they were force feeding it. And then no matter what Aaron Moorhead says, I still think it hurt Travis Fulgham, both maybe mentally or just even the idea that it's stunting his ability to go get out there, fight through adversity, and develop. And then I feel like you would have the same situation with Zach Ertz on the team where, yes, you're right. People could say you're better theoretically because he's a talented player. But when you look at the big picture, you're not helping your team move on, do this transformation that's intending to do, and build in a different way. It's like you're stuck in the past a little bit. And we've seen that not just with Alshon, but Jason Peters and other players. It's you've got to turn the page. And I'm a big Zach Ertz fan who thinks that Zach's actually still got gas left in the tank. But so I want this as much for him so he can go somewhere and be a prominent role in somebody's offense somewhere, as much as I do want it for the Eagles to just be able to turn the page.
Even if it means you're getting very low return on investment.
Yeah, because really what you're getting low return on your investment from a draft capital standpoint if you're trading him for a pick, but you're getting a high return in that you're getting $8.5 million off your books that you now have to be able to give guys extensions or pay Landon Dickerson his money, which I'm sure will get done regardless anyway, obviously. But the bottom line is cap flexibility is an important part of this. And I think the better you can have that, you can do things.
Yeah. I want to get your take on the last round of OTAs that are just now in the book here. I was reading a lot, and you guys talked about this on Inside the Birds about the linebackers. You got Eric Wilson, who it sounds like they think he's going to start, but is it a lock that Alex Singleton is the guy that plays next to him?
I don't think anything's a lock other than Eric Wilson is a starting linebacker, and he's a starting linebacker because he was a free agent. They brought him over from Minnesota. He knows the defense, and he does what Jonathan Gannon is going to want to do because he played in that Minnesota defense. But as far as, when you're a nickel team, you're 4-2-5, traditionally we've seen here that your two nickel linebackers are kind of coverage guys, right? Or downhill stop the run type of guys, depending on what they want. But if we're going to see a Zimmer-like scheme, you're going to see a linebacker who's a pass rusher, like a guy who walks up onto the line sometimes and makes it look like more like a 5-1-5 type of scheme right there. So that's where the Ryan Kerrigans come in. That's where Jannard Avery's come in, who are not just linebackers, but they're pass rushing linebackers, kind of like what you'll see from Anthony Barr. He can cover, but he can also rush the passer. Or Jonathan Gannon could look at this whole group, Mike, and you've heard him say, look, I don't have a scheme. I have to adapt it to my personnel. He can look at this group and say, I've got a lot of different guys who do different things. I'm going to have to figure out I may have a nickel package here for when it's 3rd and 5 and I want, to rush the passer and a little bit of coverage, or it's 3rd and 1 and I'm facing a pass happy team that still likes to throw on 3rd and 1 like a Doug Peterson would do or Andy Reid would do. So I've got 2 coverage linebackers out there. So maybe it's now, if it's Davion Taylor or Alex Singleton and along with Wilson or whatever. My point is, I think he's got a lot of different guys. None of them are great, but he can probably build different packages for different guys. Whereas in the past, we've kind of known who the linebackers were going to be in almost every single situation.
Yeah, and that's interesting because we don't know exactly what style of linebacker play, but I think we do narrow it down to you're mostly only going to see 2 linebackers on the field, which you saw a lot in Jim Schwartz's defense as well. But gone are the days where you've got Jeremiah Trotter in the middle and 2 outside linebackers. You've got 2 guys playing next to each other, and we just assume that Wilson is going to be one and that Singleton might be the S. But what about a guy like Jannard Avery? What about Davion Taylor, who they drafted last year? Those are different kind of linebackers.
And that's my point about having different formations. Like if you want to rush the passer with an extra, you've got your front 4 and you want to have an extra rusher, you want a 5-man rush. Well, that's where Jannard Avery, who actually Adam Kaplan said this on our podcast a while back, had impressed himself. He had done a nice job there. Most people thought, including us, when he moved to linebacker, that was just one step away from being, off the team. But again, if you're looking for linebackers who can rush the passer, and then they went and brought in Ryan Kerrigan, and we know that they plan to play him in a kind of outside linebacker, pass rusher, DN type of role, then all of a sudden you've opened the door to looking at the position in a whole new way. Davion Taylor, I wonder how well he can fit a defense like this because he's a guy who lacks kind of the instincts and has not played the traditional linebacker role, but he can run. He can run like a gazelle. So you almost thought last year's defense would have been better because it was mostly man defense, where you could say, all right, you're on the slot tight end and you just go run with that guy. This year, if you're dropping into a lot of zones and playing a lot of too deep, he's going to have that, like, how far do I drop back? Am I moving laterally? How's my spatial awareness? What's going on in front of me with crossing routes? There's a whole lot of mental sharpness to the game that he may not have because he's never really played that style of position before.
Right. And, he does have that third round tag on him. You wonder how much cachet that gets him. At least does it buy him another year? Or, hey, new coaching staff doesn't matter. That's another storyline, I guess.
Yeah, I hope that they don't look at it that way. I mean, honestly, as much as I've criticized some of the philosophy of last year's draft and, whether or not you should take a backup quarterback in the second round and things like that, to me, the third round pick on Davion, just based on the feedback I got around the league, was probably the most egregious pick that they made in the last two drafts, perhaps, just matching the value to the player to the round. There's nothing against Davion. He's a great kid, but there are so many teams that Adam and I spoke to about this kid who would say, I think that the highest we heard a team had him is at fifth, maybe late four, but fifth. I had some guys tell me sixth, seventh, couple of teams told me rookie free agent. I mean, he was a guy who just had such little experience. It was almost all athleticism, and you're looking for the actual football in there, and it wasn't there yet.
Which, by the way, going back to what we talked about, how this team keeps adding veteran players and the message, Richard Rodgers is another one of those guys, by the way.
Yes.
Hey, we brought in a veteran player. Like, we could give time to Eric Stoll or Hakeem Butler's a project. Let's just play one of those guys, see what we get. No, they've gone with the guy that is 29 years old and has been with the team.
Right.
Obviously, different coach.
By the way, you're like me. I called him Jake Stoll when his name is Jack Stoll. You gave him Eric Stoll, so we're all over the map with Mr. Stoll.
Eric?
Yeah, you said Eric Stoll. It was kind of funny.
Not the guy who played was Mask. Wasn't that Eric?
Oh, was that his name? I forget. Yeah, Eric, something like that.
Yeah,
man, you're taking us back a long time, my friend.
Yeah, that was Cher and Mask. Was the movie.
Yeah.
Rocky Dennis.
Right. But by the way, that's another reason why I don't think Zach Ertz will be on the team, because if Dallas Goedert were to get hurt, and Zach Ertz is not on the team, who are you going to trust as your number one tight end? Stoll, a rookie free agent, Jason Kroom, Tyree Jackson. Like, there was no guy that made sense as your top tight end if Dallas Goedert's going to get hurt. Now it does, because Richard Rodgers can catch and block and has experience.
You can make an argument that at points last year, he was the most reliable guy they had.
Oh my God, it's the Giants. I mean, he was the only guy, right? Boston Scott caught the game-winning touchdown. I know that, but Richard Rodgers pretty much caught every other pass in the game.
Yeah, no, and look, there was a year in Green Bay he had 8 touchdowns. I mean, that was about I think 2015 or 16. But he has been a reliable receiver in this league, and that's interesting. So, all right, Nick Mullins is here. He'll be the number 3 quarterback, we presume, which gives them a guy who has started 16 games. They have a Super Bowl MVP on the roster at backup quarterback. So that quarterback room has some interesting names in there. And, of course, we're getting closer. That week went by very quickly last week. So we're only down to, 6 weeks before training camp.
Yeah, I need to enjoy these 6 weeks too, man.
I know, but, it's funny because I was just saying, I had lunch with my father on Friday, and he said, normally in the summertime, we start to think about taking a little time off, recharge the battery to football season. I said, look, if the Sixers make a run to the finals, I mean, where am I going? I can't take a day off with the Sixers in the finals. This is too big. But I said, if they get to the finals, game 7, the furthest this season can go is July 22nd.
Oh my God, that is amazing.
And that takes you right to training camp.
How about that?
Right.
And if the Phillies start to get hot, Mike, you're going to feel weird about taking some. No, I'm just kidding. They are getting hot, but I don't think you'll be upset about taking a few July days off.
I'll ask you then, what do you think about the Phillies series against San Francisco being exclusively on Peacock?
I just saw that an hour ago, and the first question I had was, why?
They're trying, they want to try to they have put
so this is like how it's been on Facebook or Hulu or Amazon. They're just trying something different.
All these streaming services, they're all trying, because people are cutting the cord. So they're saying, if you're going to cut the cord, then buy our streaming service.
Right. Well, and now I guess my next mission is to find out if I have Peacock. If I because I think I subscribed to it. Yes, I have Xfinity.
So if you have Xfinity, apparently it's like free with Xfinity.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll find it.
App on your X1 box. You go to the app section on your box, and it'll.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yep.
Awesome.
It'll be there.
My favorite criticism of MLB is when people say when the games are on Facebook, or I'm sorry, when they're on YouTube, they say, "I can't believe they're putting stuff on YouTube. How is anybody supposed to find it?" You know, I don't think people realize that children right now don't watch TV; they watch YouTube. Yeah.
Well, baseball. I don't want to say that they don't care about the older audience, but they're trying to attract younger audiences.
Which they should do, by the way.
Right. The younger audience isn't watching cable.
No, I mean, I'm sorry if you're older and it's harder for you, but honestly, I credit baseball for finally being a little progressive and trying to get at the youth. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do.
Well, I said on Saturday, I called a high school baseball game, which was on YouTube. We had over 5,000 people watch the game, and they found it. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yep.
And people are like, that is an avenue where people now almost expect, hey, there's a live game on here somewhere. So YouTube is an easy platform because it's free. You can just go to youtube.com. Having the streaming service is a little different because you have to download them and then sign up for them.
Right. Yeah, but you know what? The kids will figure that out when they're old enough.
They will, yes. But, Dad, who's 65 years old, who wants to watch the Phillies play, now he's got to sign up for Peacock.
Get off my lawn.
All right.
Get off my machine.
The new Inside the Birds podcast is chock full with information on the return of Richard Rodriguez, Eric Wilson, the linebacker position, and so much more. And don't forget, a new one comes out on Thursday at 6 a.m., and that is when Adam Kaplan will be back. Andrew's here tomorrow. Jeff's back on Wednesday. And don't forget to check out all of the Inside the Birds platform. All right, Geoff Mosher, take care.
All right, Michael Gill, have a great one.
He, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. I hope you will stay with me the rest of the way till 6 o'clock, because coming up tonight, Jeff Kerr will talk more on the NFL moves. We'll go inside the NFC East with Jeff Kerr and the NFL. Plus, Bob Wankel will talk a little Phils with us today at 4:40. But when we come back, it's Do You Remember? Think about some of these events next. All right, 428 on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Search 973 ESPN. All right, here we go. Let's take a look at the things that happened on this day. As we mentioned, it was a weekend of things that happened on the day. Today is June the 14th. So we will take a look back at events that happened on this day, June 14th. The producer is Josh Henning. There he is.
Hey there.
What's up, man? How'd you like the fight this weekend, by the way?
That was a big part. And there wasn't a big part.
Oh, a bird and Diaz. Gave him the 2 old birds.
Oh, that's what he does.
That's usually Nate Diaz doing that, though.
Listen, it was a great fight card, and it was great actually because I won money. So,
Okay, there you go. Little cash. All right, these are things that happened on this day, June the 14th. Here we go. Michael Jordan is always on these things, I feel like, right?
this time of year, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Michael Jordan scored 45 points in 1998. He had the game-winning shot with 5.2 seconds left. The Bulls beat the Jazz 87-86 at the Delta Center to win the NBA Finals in 6 games. The win is the Bulls' second three-peat champions.
The crossover, walk-off, we thought was going to be the last moment of Michael's career. And then
That the push-off?
It's kind of a push-off. It wasn't a full push-off.
A lot of people felt that he kind of pushed off. Who was the defender?
Brian Russell.
Brian Russell.
You know, I tell the people who are complaining about that, they probably have money on it.
1990, Isaiah Thomas, 29 points. Bill Laimbeer, 17 rebounds. The Pistons beat the Blazers 92-90 at the Memorial Coliseum to win the NBA Finals in 5 games. It's the second consecutive championship for the Bad Boy Pistons. You know, you go back to 1990, the Bad Boys there. How long ago? I mean, 1990. My gosh. I had the T-shirt. I remember the T-shirt. I didn't have it. But you remember, they had, the cartoon, the big heads?
Yes.
Yeah, the Pistons one was great. You had, Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn.
Dumars.
Joe Dumars. His name's come up a couple times on this segment.
By the way, that is one team that I don't think could survive in today's NBA.
The Bad Boys?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Like a lot of times people hear me
Although,
say
if you watch the Bucks-Nets series, I feel like they could survive in that series. Those officials have been horrible.
well, if we could swap the Bucks Nets refs with the Sixers refs, it would be pretty funny.
God. All right, 1994. Remember this, man? The Canucks lost to the Rangers in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. The fans rioted in downtown Vancouver. Over 200 injuries and $1.1 million in Canadian dollars in damages.
I remember back then when people were like, people should remove that team from the city because they don't deserve it.
Really?
Yeah, I remember that conversation.
I don't remember that at all. 1994. I do remember, though, the Rangers. That's the Messier guarantee year.
Yes, it was.
Mike Benjamin played for the Giants, recorded 6 hits in a 4-3 win over the Cubs at Wrigley Field. The 6 hits were part of a run in which Benjamin made a Major League Baseball record 14 hits in 3 consecutive games.
All right. Good for Mike.
Right? 14 hits he had in over 3 games. Boom, 14 hits.
Honestly, I wouldn't remember who Mike Benjamin was. So he just brought it up now.
Oh, he was a little utility guy.
Yeah.
At the Summit in Houston, Akeem Olajuwon had 35 points and 15 rebounds, and Clyde Drexler had 9 assists as the Rockets beat Shaquille O'Neal and the Orlando Magic 113-101. They sweep the Magic in the finals.
That was the dream at the apex of his powers. I mean, he was shaking and baking Shaq in the post. He was owning him.
You know who else was on that team?
Robert Horry,
Him, but
Sam Cassell.
there you go. Sam Cassell, who's apparently up for the Orlando Magic job.
Apparently, Boston wants to interview him too.
Facts. Did you read that on 97.3 ESPN.com?
I might have.
Yes,
I also have the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, which I got to learn from it.
there you go. Yeah, Sam Cassell was on that team. Clyde Drexler, you remember. Now, when you think of Clyde Drexler, you obviously think of him as a Blazer.
But he got traded to them in that year because Clyde wanted to win a championship. And remember, he helped them because when they got into the postseason, they were the 6th seed. They didn't have a very good year early on. But then Clyde came back. He was a little banged up, but he came back. He helped fuel them a little bit. They got into the postseason because they were a team that, the old traditional, well, they're built for the playoffs. Well, they really were built for the playoffs.
Here you go. 1933. Okay.
I wasn't alive then.
Who remembers this? Part of this. No one should be remembering it. But Lou Gehrig and Joe McCarthy are thrown out of a game. McCarthy suspended 3 games, but Gehrig isn't. So he continues his streak at 1,249 games. So was there a conspiracy there that isn't brought up that Gehrig's consecutive game streak was there, so they didn't suspend him?
That's interesting.
I never heard that part of the story. How about you?
I think I might remember that story from like Ken Burns baseball, but
Really?
It wasn't exactly front of my mind. You know what I mean?
Oh, I don't think I've ever heard that.
I know in Ken Burns baseball they talked about how like there were different things that happened back then. Baseball allowing certain players to stay on the field for example, Babe Ruth got into like a fight at a bar the night before. He was supposed to be arrested, and they baseball helped him get out of prison apparently.
All right, 1969, Reggie Jackson has 10 RBIs in a game as the Red Sox lose. The A's beat the Red Sox 21-7. Are you more impressed with 10 RBI in one game or 14 hits over 3?
Wow, I kind of have to say the RBI because when you're hitting with runners in scoring position, the other team is actively trying to prevent you from letting that run come in. Whereas, how many of those 14 hits with a man on base? You know what I mean?
Good question.
The strategy's a little different.
1974. How about this? Nolan Ryan strikes out 19 guys in 12 innings. Yeah. He pitched 12 innings. Was he on a pitch count? I'd like to know how many pitches he threw in that game.
It was probably like 179 knowing him.
My gosh.
That dude threw a lot of pitches in his career.
You think they had pitch counts on him?
Definitely not. If they did, he probably would have punched him.
Oh, man, he would have beat some ass. 1987, the Lakers beat Boston 4-2 in the 41st NBA championship. And I'll do one more for you here, okay?
Give me one more.
The Lakers in 2009 beat the Magic 99-86 in Game 5 to win their 5th NBA championship. That was the Dwight Howard led.
Yeah, Dwight Howard and Hedo Turkoglu.
Yes, there you go. Hedo Turkoglu was the number 2 guy on that team. Jeez.
Hey, man, Dwight Howard, he was a force of nature early. He was so impressive. For a guy as limited offense, talk about Ben Simmons all the time. Ben at least has a little bit more to his game than Dwight did. Dwight literally was just dunks early in his career.
Well, that's all you had to do back then before the rules all kind of changed.
But, he was so impactful as a defender and a rebounder, it didn't matter.
He took them to the finals.
He did. They were competitive. You just said 4-2.
All right, Sports Bash Live, when we come back, the Phillies were competitive over the weekend. So, have we changed our opinions of this team after sweeping the Yankees? All that and more coming up next with Phillies beat writer Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad. Up next.
promise I have a lot to say. I promise I'll.
4:41 on a Monday. Now, Friday, we talked to Bob before the weekend. The Phillies did not play Friday night, but they played Saturday, Sunday, and got a sweep over the Yankees. Now, Friday, when we spoke, didn't feel too positive about this team. Had the vibes changed at all with a couple of wins just like that and an Aaron Nola victory? I think that's the key here. So let's bring Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad into the conversation as the Phillies sweep this weekend and now a very important West Coast trip here where they will play 6 against the 2 best teams in the National League East, Bob, but some come-from-behind victories kind of changes the mojo, it feels like, of this team all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's all right to feel good about them. It's been a while since you could feel good about the Phillies, right? They're back over 500 for the first time since May 19th. They just wrapped up a 6-2 homestand. When we talked on Friday, I said, hey, they've got to at least split. They've got to make sure that they have this a winning homestand, 5-3. But they go out, they win both games. Saturday was a lot of fun, and then they won in convincing fashion yesterday. And best of all, Aaron Nola, for the first time in about 6 starts, really went out and looked like the Aaron Nola that we expect. So if you're dreaming on the Phillies a little bit right now, I understand it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to kind of point out, Bob, you tweeted a lot over the weekend about Wheeler. I guess it was Friday, about how good that he's been. In fact, when I saw that, I looked up around. I said, if Jacob deGrom's not doing what he's doing, he might be in the Cy Young legit conversation, and maybe he still is, but deGrom's just having a historic season. But if you can get – I'm not asking for Nola to give me shutouts every time, but if you can get the regular Aaron Nola more so than not, him and Wheeler – that should keep you at least hanging around for a while here.
Yeah, I mean, right now the Phillies can kind of hang their hats on starting pitching. They have 3 of Major League Baseball's top 16 pitchers in terms of WAR right now. Zach Wheeler's number 2, Aaron Nola's number 13, and Zach Eflin is number 16. So when you have 3 guys that are pitching at that level consistently well, it's going to give you an opportunity to win some games. And so when you look at what the Phillies are doing right now, and the thing that jumped out at me this weekend, and we can talk about the pitching and all of that, but the thing that I really liked, and we're starting to see a little bit here on this last homestand, is that they're changing their approach with 2 strikes. I mean, there were numerous times throughout the course of this weekend where guys had good 2-strike approaches. They weren't trying to do too much. I mean, you take the first inning of yesterday's game, for example. Odubel Herrera leads off the game, 2-2 pitch, slices one into left field. Gene Segura comes up, next batter, works a 7-pitch count, rips one into right field. They have a first and third right off the bat before the Yankees can even blink. And that's the type of stuff this team and really baseball in general hasn't been about very much in recent years, but they're doing that right now, and it's made a huge difference. And, Mike, one thing I'll tell you is when a guy pops a solo home run, yeah, it all counts the same as stringing together a bunch of hits. But I really think that there's something to be said for the momentum that stringing together hits, grinding through at bats, doing the little things well. I think that has a really big impact on a team, and we're seeing that out of the Phillies right now.
All right, well, then I guess I got to ask you about the whole impact of Major League Baseball cranking down on some of these pitchers. I mean, is it already coming into effect as soon as this past weekend?
Yeah, like you don't want to do the small sample size alert stuff. I mean, obviously, like a guy like Aaron Nola had been struggling, and then these memos are going out, and baseball's starting to crack down, and then he was awesome yesterday. So you can find instances in which certain guys don't seem to be affected by this, probably weren't doing the wrong things to begin with. But if you look at the last week across the league, there's some pretty interesting data that suggests that if pitchers are eliminating these substances, it's already had a little bit of an impact. Like we've seen, I believe batting average has gone up roughly about 12 points around the league over the last 7 days. Strikeouts are down a little bit, and you can do the whole small sample size alert thing. But yeah, I mean, I would imagine there's going to be some type of tangible impact if they eliminate these substances.
Maybe it's just hitting season, as Charlie Manuel would say.
It could just be hitting season as well. That is possible.
Yeah, I mean, but the impact I don't think can be diminished of what Nola looked like, because you just said the pitchers are kind of taking a step back. He took a step forward, and that was positive because, as you tweeted out, dating back to May 9, that's 6 starts. That's a pretty decent sample size. 5.68 ERA. Opponents hitting almost 300 against him in a league where people hit about 230, and I don't know what his problem has been, if anything. But he kind of said yesterday, look, I kept working at it, even though if it didn't seem like if I haven't been, but it was a breath of fresh air to finally see him dominate. The last time he pitched a game like that, we were going back to April.
Yeah, we really haven't seen that Aaron Nola since another Sunday start where he shut down the Cardinals. But, the thing that I noticed yesterday, and really going back to his last few starts, he's really struggled to command the fastball. He's been getting beat up in the zone with the fastball. And yesterday you could see that he made a point early on to establish that pitch. I really thought that he was a little bit hesitant to attack and be in the zone in his last few starts. And yesterday he came out very aggressive. He had an 8-pitch first inning. Every single pitch was a strike. 6 of his first 8 pitches were fastballs. I mean, he was just pounding the zone, similar to what we really saw from Zach Wheeler in that Thursday start against the Braves last week. There was an attack mentality from Aaron Nola that had been missing, as far as I'm concerned, in his last handful of starts.
Bob, if there was a negative in the 2-game weekend, it was the fact that they had a 7-4 lead, and it was a blown save by Neris, and people are going crazy. Do they have a better – I don't know that they have a better option. It's like one thing to say, okay, you got to get rid of Neris. They don't have a better option, do they?
Yeah, you don't have to get rid of Neris, right? So, there's the whole two things can be true here. Hector Neris is probably their best relief option right now. People that say he stinks or he's a bum or you got to get rid of him, I just think that that's insane. I still think that Hector Neris can be a very good late inning pitcher for you. But when you look at this year, he's blown, I believe, 4 saves now. You look at him over the last handful of years, I just don't know. And I mean, there's only a very, very select few guys that are absolutely lights out every time they touch the ball in the 9th inning. But I just feel like that this team needs another late inning guy that they can turn to and say, you're our closer. I just don't think that Hector Neris consistently can get that done for you. So the Phillies are in a little bit of a tough spot because, like you suggested, do they have a better alternative? Probably not right now. But if they're going to be serious about winning, and we'll see what happens over the next 5 weeks here or so, I think when you get to the trade deadline, trying to find a veteran arm that can close out games in the 9th inning is going to be a priority. Unless a guy like Archie Bradley, who we saw hit 95, sniff 96 miles an hour at the fastball this year, by far his best velocity. If all of a sudden he can start creeping into the higher 90s, maybe they give him a shake. After all, that was one of the ideas that they had when they first brought him here. But I think that they're a bullpen piece away, especially in the 9th inning, if they're going to be serious about contending.
Now, you think at all that Joe Girardi's thinking about doing something at that position? He didn't indicate that he was.
No, I mean, right now, I think he probably understands that he doesn't have, better options. We saw Connor Brogdon has been a little bit shaky at times here this year. I really thought at the beginning of the season, if Hector Neris were to struggle, that we might see Connor Brogdon sort of evolve into that role. I think he has the stuff to do it. And for the most part, he's been decent, but I just don't think they're at the point yet where they're confident enough that, in his ability to say, here you go, here's the 9th inning, take down these final 3 outs. But long term, if Hector Neris continues to struggle, they don't make a move, I still think that there's a possibility down the road that we might see something like that.
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, Brogdon was a guy that I feel like, hey, he might not start the year as your closer, but at some point you might make that switch to go to him. But 5.01 ERA, 137 WHIP. I guess he hasn't given them any reason to say, hey, we've got to put him in there. You mentioned Bradley. I guess he would be an option. I guess Suarez doesn't have closer stuff, but man, he's been pretty good since he's come back.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal. And, I think you're going to start seeing here, you saw a little bit over the weekend, you're going to start seeing him get some higher leverage spots. I just think that it would be a little bit of a jump at this point to say, hey, you're going to consistently take down the 9th inning. But it just illustrates the point that they really don't have that clear-cut guy that can step in here and do this, which is probably why you're going to see Joe Girardi continue to roll with Hector Neris a little bit more here.
I think you're right on that. I know all these people over the weekend when he blew that game on Saturday after, what was it, Saturday afternoon, I guess it was. They scored 3 in the 9th. The game goes extras, and then the Phillies get a walk-off Gene Segura. And got to give it to Gene Segura, man. 3 for 6. He's hitting 329. Him and Herrera have turned into a nice little something at the top of that lineup, man.
Yeah, I really like the energy that these two guys are giving them right now. I mean, you see yesterday's game. I believe between the two of them, they had 5 combined hits. They knocked in 3 runs together, scored 3 runs. I mean, they're creating chaos at the top of the order right now. And I know sometimes people get a little bit frustrated. They see Segura not really, busted down the line. Herrera has his hiccups and, his mind lapses and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, these guys are very productive. Herrera's basically sniffing around an 800 OPS, really after a tough start. He's been phenomenal for them offensively. And Gene Segura has been, for my money, one of the 2 or 3 best second basemen in baseball this year. So, they're getting a big spark up there. And if they can get those guys in the middle cooking at the same time, you get Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Rhys Hoskins all rolling at the same time, they might be onto something. And one other thing real quick, Mike, you look at Alec Boehm. He's in the middle of a 73 plate appearance stretch right now without an extra base hit, which is just not something that I think anybody really saw coming. But that being said, he closed out the month of May 1 for 23. Well, he's put it together here in June a little bit. He's hitting 355, and he's sort of starting to get that swing back. So we'll see if those extra base hits start coming, and if they do, Phillies might be onto something here.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought Boehm up because you're right. He did have a couple hits and then one yesterday. By the way, Segura was 3 for 4 again yesterday, up to 339 is the batting average for Segura. What do we know about Didi?
Yeah, a little bit of a weird situation here. So he begins his rehab assignment, homers, everything's looking good. Comes out of a game early, then we don't see him this weekend. And Joe Girardi answered questions about him yesterday and basically just said that there was a little bit of a setback, but that they feel, and you just don't know really. They're messaging at this point on injuries. You have no idea. But I got the feeling that he's going to be down at least a couple more days. I think there was some hope initially that you would see him on this West Coast trip. Maybe you see him in San Francisco, possibly, but I wouldn't count on it.
Yep. All right. Dodgers and San Francisco. Thoughts on that in a second. Last one. What do we know about Haseley? Do you think he's in their plans to bring back up at any point? Or is this just, hey, he's back in the organization and just kind of let him be?
I think that injuries will dictate that partially, and I think his own performance will dictate that partially. But right now, I think the Phillies are comfortable with what they have, but if he gets red hot down there and proves that he's back and can be the player that they think he can be, that fourth outfielder type, and be a productive player here, there's a possibility of it. The only thing that really is a little bit of a drawback for me is, again, you're talking about another left-handed bat. This team needs right-handed depth off the bench, and he's not that.
No, real quick, I totally forgot about this though. The pitching situation with Howard. What are they going to do? Like a split start or something here?
Yeah, it looks like so. Bailey Falter, both Matt Gelb and Matt Breen had reported this earlier today. Bailey Falter is a interesting pitching prospect for the Phillies, and he's out west with them. And it looks like there might be the piggyback situation with Spencer Howard starting, a guy that has not really given them any depth at all. Seems to fade very early on in starts. And so it looks like they might be using this piggyback idea here this week and tonight. So we'll see what happens. And it's a very interesting stretch of games here. All of these games are important. Every series is important, but this is a team that's 11-19 on the road right now. They're going out west to play 2 teams that are combined 28 games over 500. So you feel good about where the Phillies are at. They're within striking distance of the Mets. But this is a show-me week for the Philadelphia Phillies. You've got to go out there and be competitive against these 2 teams.
Gabe Kapler's bunch is the number 1 team in the National League. They'll play them this weekend on Peacock exclusively, and they'll play the Dodgers for 3. They are the second best team right now in the National League. All right, Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad. He, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Some late nights for the Phils in L.A. The weekend games, by the way, are some afternoon tilts on Peacock. So
thank God.
There you go. All right, Bob. Take care, man.
See you, Mike.
By the way, Ocean City beat Colts Neck 4-2. They are the Group 3. They're going to the state finals. They won the sectional. This was the semifinal, and now they'll face the Group 3 North Jersey champions. So congratulations to them. They beat Colts Neck 4-2 today. That game is now complete. All right, when we come back, Sixers and the Hawks, we got the keys for tonight. Plus, Jeff Kerr going to talk a little NFL at 5:25. So stick around. Your text, 609-403-0973. Coming up. All right, final hour of the show, and don't forget tonight you can listen to the Sixers and the Hawks Game 4. It starts at 7 o'clock with the coverage, and Tom McGinnis on the call at 7:30 tonight. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973 is your text board. You can jump on board that way. If you're watching the show on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, you can obviously be a part of the video chat as we take it till 6. Game night tonight. Jason Blevins, one of our Sixers contributors from 97.3 ESPN.com, is going to join Josh. I know Jason's working on an interesting story in this series, and it's the defensive adjustments that the Sixers have made. And one guy, kind of unheralded, Dan Burke, the defensive coach, who the Sixers got from the Indiana Pacers. He has been a big factor in this series with the defensive adjustments. He's kind of their defensive coordinator, if you will. And I think that's it. There's a lot here that we can kind of dive into on this game and what happened on Friday night that really has allowed the Sixers, I think, to kind of grab this series and kind of put their foot on the necks of the Atlanta Hawks. It feels like the Hawks are about ready to kind of cave in here. It feels like the Hawks are pretty much, just overmatched, if you will, right? Doesn't it feel like the Hawks are just a bit overmatched in this situation? It just feels that they had everything going for them in game number 1. And then as soon as the Sixers popped the tape in, they kind of said, all right, we see this. You can't do that. Here's the problem for the Hawks. They just simply don't have an adjustment to make. You know, we threw out a couple of different adjustments at Paul Hudrick earlier today. And Paul essentially said, I don't think that helps them. I don't think that works for them. And I kind of agree. You know, you can't just say, hey, we're going to take Clint Capella off the court, go small. And the Sixers have the ability, you know, Trae Young sets a lot of stuff up here. I think one of the things that the Hawks need to figure out how to do, and here's the problem, the Sixers have done a good job in basically taking that away, which is Trae Young, and they've defended him to the point where he has to, you know, everything that Trae Young is doing, they're pushing him further and further off the three-point line. And I think the problem then becomes, look, he made 3 of 6 the other day. He had a decent game. But now everything is starting so much further out for the rest of the guys, and they're not shooting the ball well. The question will be, Furkan Korkmaz in the starting lineup. Do they take advantage of Furkan? That's one thing. Number 2, can they, 1, take advantage of Furkan Korkmaz enough on the offensive side of the ball, the Hawks, that they can exploit that? You know, one of the things that the Sixers have done a really good job of is they keep finding ways to get Trae Young to play defense, and he's not very good at it. You know, this is one of those times, you know, where you see the little guy. Trae Young's a little guy. He's like 6'1", but you're like marveled by the fact that he can shoot and score and do all these things. But in the end, small guys, it's hard to find too many small guys that lead teams to championships. There's a reason for that. You know, because on the defensive side of the ball, the small guy is a problem, especially when the Sixers have the big guys. Trae Young, who, I don't know, I think stands, 6'1"? He would probably be one of the smallest lead guards to win a championship since like Isaiah Thomas. I mean, you're going back to a different era. Look at the teams that are winning now. And I guess the smallest, you know, you had Kyrie, who's not like, you know, he's not 6'5", but he had LeBron. I mean, LeBron was on that team. So, yeah, Kyrie and LeBron, but LeBron James is on that team. So you kind of, you know, that doesn't really count. I guess Curry, who would be he's like 6'3" as the lead guard there. I guess he's, you know, one exception, you know, but even Trae Young's 2 inches shorter than that. And why does that matter? Well, it doesn't matter entirely, but you're going back to like Allen Iverson. You saw what happened there. Iverson was great. He left it all out there. He was defensively. He made a lot of steals. But teams exploited Iverson was not a great on-ball defender. He was great in the passing lanes. He was great at that. The Sixers are doing a great job of exploiting Trae Young on the defensive side of the ball. Now, if Furkan Korkmaz starts tonight, and by the way, that's who I think will start tonight. I think you will see Furkan Korkmaz in the lineup for the Sixers. I think he will be the guy that gets the start. By the way, some breaking news with Brooklyn. Kyrie Irving is out for the game on Tuesday night with that ankle. And I got to be honest with you. I don't know that he plays again, man. In this series anyway. Maybe if they get out of this series. But I don't know how he gets back on the court, at least in this series. Now, X-rays are negative, which is normal. I mean, you don't see very many broken ankles. But what you do see a lot is a sprained ankle, and they are tough to come back from. They really are, man. So Kyrie is out. We know James Harden will likely not play in the game tomorrow night as well. But I don't see – I'm just like, thinking, man, Kyrie probably not going to play. At least – look, what's the schedule for this year? I know they play tomorrow, and I know they play Thursday. So they are right now on Tuesday, Thursday. I would imagine Saturday is probably the last one, right? Yep, they play Tuesday, 8:30, Thursday, 8:30, and Saturday would be game number 7. So can he get ready to come back from an ankle sprain? He sprained it on Sunday. Can he get back for Saturday? I don't know. I really don't. I'm of the opinion that I don't think you'll see Kyrie, or at least the Kyrie that we know. Now, Doc Rivers has yet to tell us who is going to be the starter, and he's got to shuffle the deck here. We do know that. So I think tonight he goes with Korkmaz, right? I think he goes with Korkmaz tonight. So you'll see a situation. The question is, I think you'll get Ben Simmons on Trae Young. You will get Korkmaz in the starting lineup again. Danny Green, who played Trae Young in the first game of the series, I think he goes and plays the green role on defense. But that's a spot where the Atlanta Hawks now have to try to find a way to get to Korkmaz. So this is the chess match now, because the Sixers theoretically didn't have a, I thought the Hawks went after Seth Curry a little bit, but the Sixers do such a good job of getting him off and helping him out. But now you got Curry and Korkmaz out there. So keep that in mind. Now, Thibault initially was the guy that replaced Green in that first quarter on Friday. But I think the clue for me is that Korkmaz saw the extended minutes. I think he played 27 minutes on Friday night. So I think you'll get Korkmaz. And there were 3 games that Danny Green did not play in this year. And Korkmaz started all 3 of those games. So that is, to me, the telling thing. And Doc Rivers says he already knows who it's going to be. I think it's going to be Korkmaz. Now, the other part of this, we all know, Joel Embiid. He's averaging 35 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists in this series. He's doing this playing on a small right lateral meniscus tear, which is pretty unbelievable. Now, 27 points on Friday. So you would say, well, they slowed him down a little bit. What did they do? Well, I don't know that they slowed him down so much, is that the Sixers went and made a big adjustment in their offense by going with Ben Simmons in the post. See, this is where the Sixers just have a variety of ways that they can come at you. And I always say they have a multiple-tiered offense, multiple prongs to their offense. They can go down into I saw an interesting stat about this, though. And I love this because you get these old school heads that want Joel Embiid to get his butt down in the paint. I think it was Mark Zumoff, actually, was on the locker room with Billy and Pete yesterday. And Zumoff brought up that Joel Embiid didn't catch a pass below the foul line. In other words, Doc Rivers is setting them up. The offense with Joel Embiid, nothing's in the paint. So the Sixers are utilizing Joel Embiid in the perimeter aspect. And I wonder if it has to do with that knee, but they're not utilizing him the way that a lot of people, quote unquote, would say they want him to. How many times have we heard basketball fans get his butt down in the post? And that's not the way the Sixers are using him. Right? Hal is listening on the app, and he hits us up on the app notification. He says, how tall is Chris Paul? He's going to the Western Conference Finals. He's like 6'1", Chris Paul. Now, he is 36 or 37 years old, and he has never been to an NBA Finals before. You see the challenges there, but that's a fair one. But keep in mind, while Chris Paul, I think it's fair to say he's the steadying player of that team. Devin Booker is a 6'5" guard. And Chris Paul's a different player than Trae Young. Trae Young is a offensive machine. Shoots the three, explodes to the basket. Chris Paul is your more classic point guard. So I understand what you're saying, but I'm talking about when your lead scorer is what I was kind of referring to. When your lead scorer and your best player is a smallish guy like Trae Young, it makes it challenging. He wears down defensively. Teams get, like, even Iverson, he was not a good on-ball defender. Teams took advantage of Iverson a lot because of his stature. Where Iverson was really good on defense was in the passing lanes. He would get to the passing lanes, get steals, but he was not a great one-on-one on-ball defender. Trae Young is worse, I would say. And Chris Paul's a pretty gritty defender. He's a good defensive player. But he's not their lead scorer. And he also is not a defensive liability. He's a tough guy. He's very tough. So it's a good name, though, that you brought up there. And that series, by the way, over. Sweeperoni. So did you think that call last night on Jokic was weak sauce, or did you think that was, was warranted? He got tossed from the game for that kind of slap down in frustration. So if it's me, my MVP of my league can't be ejected for that. I mean, come on. You got to keep him on the floor in that situation. You can maybe give him a flagrant one. It's a flagrant foul, but you can't throw the guy out of the game, for God's sakes. By the way, he got all ball. Did you hear what Reggie Miller said? He looked at it. He said he got all ball. It was the fact that the ball came back up and popped him in the face. So I think it was an excessive haymaker, like over the top. And it was out of frustration, but he did get all ball there. So a couple things in this series I want to bring up. 609-403-0973. I'm like, first off, I will be extremely disappointed tomorrow if I come in here and this series is tied 2-2. Okay? Let's throw that out here first. If I come in tomorrow and the Sixers lost this game, during the regular season, they lose on Tuesday night in February. I'm pretty laid back. You guys know that. I don't care about losing a regular season game. I don't care how you look. I don't care if you win by 1, win by 21, lose by 1, lose by 41. That game's over, and it's behind you. This game here is put this damn team away, and now with the problems that are going on with the Nets and the problems they have, it's time to start shifting the mindset of the people out there to say, the Sixers team might be the one. The Bucks even that series. Couple interesting things. Giannis recorded his fourth 30.10 rebound game this season. But what have I said about them? They need Antetokounmpo to score. They need him to score, and he did. So his offensive limitations did not bother them yesterday. One of the reasons is because the Nets didn't have any offense to counter. But Giannis again yesterday, 26 of his 34 points came in the paint. It is tied for the most in a single postseason game. 14 playoff games with 20 points in the paint. So Giannis, if you watch that game yesterday, he was 1 for 8 from 3 in the previous game, right? I'm pretty sure he was 1 for 8. I'm doing that off the top of my head, but I think he was 1 for 8 from 3. But in the game yesterday, if you were watching that game, now the officials are awful in this series. You think they're bad in the Sixers series. They're horrible in this series. The NBA's got a big officiating problem. But in this game yesterday, Antetokounmpo was 1 for 5 from 3. Still horrible from 3 again. I don't know. It's like, what's more frustrating? That Simmons doesn't shoot or Antetokounmpo does and can't make them? I mean, he's 5 of 10 from the line. I'll take the 10 times from the line, but he's only 50%. I know it sounds crazy. Just make one more, you're at 60%, and that seems to be better. 6 of 10 out of 5 out of 10. But the 1 out of 5 from 3, there were times yesterday, Antetokounmpo is so wide open from three-point range. Holy mackerel. They are just letting him bomb away. But here's the difference. He'll take the shot. Is that good or bad? Is that good or bad? Simmons won't take the shot. They'll let him shoot it. He won't take it. But he's good enough to find someone else to take the shot. That's where I think they differ. The Sixers have lost 7 best-of-7 series in which they've had a 2-1 lead. So keep that in your back pocket tonight when you're watching this series. The Hawks have only won 3 of 24 best-of-7 series in which they were down 2-1. So this is not a good spot for the Hawks. It's an interesting spot for the Sixers. Now, they have made more than half their shots in each of the last 4 games. The longest streak within 1 year playoff since the Spurs had a 4-game streak back in 2014. The last NBA team with a longer streak, the Magic in 1995, I believe they went to the finals. So here's another interesting number for you. 989. The Sixers have scored 989 points. They're averaging 123 points per game in the playoffs this year. It's pretty crazy. This wasn't a team that scored 120 points in the regular season, but they're now upping that as they get into these playoffs here. Now, the Hawks allowed an average of 97 points to the Knicks in the first round, but they're giving up 123 here. It shows you 2 things: how inept the Knicks offense was, but just how much better the Sixers are as an opponent. Just think about how much the Hawks dominated the Knicks in that series. And now the flip of the script here. Ben Simmons is averaging 8.8 assists per game, nearly 2 per game more than his average during the regular season. So he averaged 6.9 assists in the regular season. He's upping that now to almost 9 assists per game. So Ben Simmons is taking his offensive game to another level as well. And then, of course, there's Trae Young, the biggest factor in this game tonight for them. Scored 230 points in the playoffs. It's the 4th highest total through 8 playoff games among active players. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Luka Doncic are the only guys who have scored more in the time in the playoffs. So we have so much that is kind of intriguing about this game tonight. You got the high-scoring Embiid. You got the high-scoring Trae Young. Even though the Sixers have made a positive adjustment to kind of take him out, he has still kind of figured it out. Can they find a second guy to step up? That's another big question in the game. You'll find out tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN. And don't forget, tomorrow, Michael Kasky-Blomain goes inside the Sixers with us as we recap game number 4. I think the Sixers will have a 3-1 series lead. I think they win the game tonight. But I do think it's going to be a tough one. I think this one will be kind of a late game, and the Sixers pull it out late. When we come back, the Eagles have added a veteran quarterback. We have the details with Geoff Kerr from CBS Sports coming up next. All right, we're back live on a Monday. Tonight, don't forget the Sixers and the Hawks. You can listen to all the action. The coverage starts at 7. The tip-off set for around 7:30. Tom McGinnis here on 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. At Mike Gill Show on Twitter. Give me a follow over there. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. Eagles and NFL. NFC East. We'll have a lot of focus on that throughout the offseason. We've got plenty to do. Let's bring Geoff in now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline as the Eagles today have made a signing that is an interesting one. They brought in veteran quarterback, a young veteran quarterback, Nick Mullins, and we had it last week during Football at 4. Adam Kaplan said on the air here that that would be the guy they were going to target because of his background in the West Coast. So interesting signing here, Jeff Kerr, is they bring in Nick Mullins to be the number 3 guy, a guy who has started 16 NFL games.
Best quarterback on the market. I mean, I don't know what else you could say, Mike. I love this signing. I actually think he can compete to be a QB too.
That's interesting. So you think that he could possibly knock Joe Flacco to the number 3 spot? Or you're just saying he has the talent of a QB2?
I think he has the talent of a QB2. This was an interesting stat I dug up today. Nick Mullins actually has the second most passing yards through his first 16 career starts since 1950. Only Patrick Mahomes is higher. I thought that was very interesting. I knew he threw for a lot of yards.
Only you would find that.
You know what? It's one of those weird stats. I dug it up. I knew he threw for a lot of yards, and I think he had like the most passing yards for his first 12 starts, so I had to look it up. I didn't know this too, Mike. Apparently, he tied Joe Montana's franchise record for most 220-plus yard passing games in his first 9 starts. 9.
So what's the messaging here? You're bringing in a guy who has starting experience. You've got Jalen Hurts. You've got Joe Flacco. Why not bring a rookie free agent in and try to develop that guy? Why is Nick Mullins the right guy?
A significant upgrade over Jamie Newman, that's for sure. I think the Eagles did their due diligence with Nick Mullins. They had to find out about the elbow injury. I remember earlier this offseason, they thought it might have been Tommy John, or he might have needed Tommy John surgery. Obviously, that cleared out. So I think the Eagles said, you know what, this guy's healthy. He wasn't going to be ready for minicamp anyway. So I just think the Eagles said, you know what, let's bring him in. Let's have some more competition. We'll have a QB factory again, although it does look like the Eagles
Don't start that.
Yeah, although it does look like the Eagles have 3 solid quarterbacks on their roster.
Yeah, one of the interesting things for me, Geoff, is, you have a lot of young wideouts on this team. At least now you're getting quarterbacks that have professional starting experience. You're not having John Hightower, Quez Watkins, and the younger group of receivers catching passes from a guy who is a very unproven player. I like that aspect of it.
I do too. And the one thing I did like about Nick Mullins is he has trouble finishing games, no doubt about that, as we saw in week 4 against the Eagles last year. Nick Mullins had a good start, but his fourth quarters are a lot to be desired. That's why he's a backup quarterback. But overall, if Jalen Hurts were to get injured and say Nick Mullins is the QB2, I honestly wouldn't mind him starting a game or two. He has proven over the years to get the job done.
Yeah. Mullins, and by the way, you'll remember him from the game the Eagles beat the 49ers this past year. He did throw that interception, horrible throw to Alex Singleton.
I benched after that.
Yeah, he did. But he has 16 games experience. So it's one of those things where, you're not going to just a completely unproven rookie free agent in a game or two. You like last year when Dallas had to go to Ben DiNucci,
Oh boy.
You're not in that, but you're not going to that bottom of the barrel in this situation. If for whatever reason you had to play him, he can win you a game or two. If you only need him for a week or two, fine. If you need him for an elongated, you're probably in trouble.
It's almost like the year McNabb broke his leg in 2002. And you had Coy Detmer, who was already a solid backup quarterback, but you didn't really know what you had in A.J. Feely, even though he was a low-round draft pick and was in the system. That's what I feel like they're doing with Nick Mullins. He's in the system, but he's a lot more proven. In case the Eagles do happen to suffer a quarterback injury or two, at the very worst, they have a good backup quarterback to the backup.
Yeah, I like. I agree with you. I like the move. I don't think it's but it's interesting because the moves this offseason have been a lot of veteran players, which is somewhat surprising, I guess, if you think this team is going to struggle. You've brought in Richard Rodgers, 29 years old. You bring in Mullins, a 26-year-old veteran guy there. They've brought in Kerrigan. They've brought in Kerryon Johnson. These are veteran players that they've added to this roster that kind of almost speak to win now.
It feels like they're bringing in talented veteran players too. It's almost like the Eagles look at it as we have an opportunity to, at the very least, have depth on this team. And we talked about this earlier, Mike. That's what they missed last year. They just didn't have anybody to replace a starter when they got hurt. Kerrigan is one of those guys. If, say, Brandon Graham gets hurt or Derek Barnett, you can put in Kerrigan right away. Same thing with Richard Rodgers. Now you have depth at the tight end position. I do think the Eagles, they feel they are going to be a lot more competitive than maybe we initially thought in February or March. I don't know if that's Nick Sirianni trying to hype up the team or the fan base, or if that's just the Eagles. They're feeling comfortable with what they have. They just need to add more depth to their roster, and I just feel they're doing that at every position with the limited salary cap space that they have.
Aaron Moorhead, Geoff, said that J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is in a great place right now, playing good ball. He had 3 good weeks here with us. I'm excited to see where he's at. Do you think the new coaching staff is giving him a clean slate?
He needs something. I'm not ready to write the guy off yet. I mean, Mike Quick did have, 10 catches his rookie year, something like that. It wasn't many, and, we saw what Mike Quick was able to do by year 3. And, look, a lot of these wide receivers, it does take time, but, I don't want to say I don't have faith in J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I just want, at this point, show me on the football field. I don't want to hear how great he is in the red zone. I don't want to hear how great he is in the preseason, how great he looks in practices in helmets and shorts. Just show me on the football field. Catch touchdown passes. Find a way to help this wide receiver core. I feel like he hasn't done that since he caught the first pass from Carson Wentz in Week 16 of the 2019 season against Dallas. I want to see more of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I do want to see him get a chance. Don't get me wrong, Mike, but show me on the football field.
Well, fair there. I will just say and ask you, Nelson Aguilar looked like a total bust. They moved him to the slot, and he helped them win a Super Bowl. I thought he was a key player on that offense that year.
He's a player right now, too.
Yeah, and the role that he had in 2017 was a slot guy, had a lot of big catches and plays. Ken, is there a different role for Arcega-Whiteside to get some more out of him?
I'd love to see him as a red zone threat, kind of like how he was at Stanford, kind of do like that box move to, kind of help Jalen Hurts. Remember when I forget who Jalen Hurts threw the touchdown pass to against the Saints, his first start. I'm trying to remember who caught the touchdown pass. But that's who I want J.J. Arcega-Whiteside to be. I feel like he could be a good red zone threat. I feel like he can be a good third down receiver. If he can get to be like a Jason Avant type receiver, I think that extremely benefits the Eagles. Is it what you want out of your second round pick from a couple years ago? No, but at least he can show he belongs on the football field.
Heard some buzz over the weekend about Jannard Avery. Should I be excited?
Should we? You know what? Here's the thing about Jannard Avery. I'm willing to give him a chance at linebacker strictly because he can rush the passer. I feel like the Eagles can use him on multiple fronts. I will say this. I think Jannard Avery has a spot on this team. I'm not going to get too excited yet, but at the same time with Jannard Avery, I've seen what he can do when he gets to the quarterback. He can get to the quarterback. I feel like he needs time and he needs to get healthy. And let's just see what he does at his new position.
All right. Geoff Kerr, CBS Sports here on the Sports Bash Monday. We got a bunch of stuff happening in the NFL, even when it seems like there's not all that much stuff happening here. There seems to be stuff. Now, one of the teams we talked, I think, on Friday about the Giants and, where they are. But what about the Washington football team? You kind of mentioned that could be a up for grabs quarterback situation here. But I was suggested this weekend that could they be a player for Aaron Rodgers?
The way Ron Rivera thinks, I wouldn't put it past him.
If they got Aaron Rodgers, they're a Super Bowl contender with that defense?
I think with Aaron Rodgers, they're one of the best teams in the NFC.
Right?
If you think about it, look, they got Antonio Gibson. They have Terry McLaurin. They have Curtis Samuel. They have De'Ami Brown. They have Logan Thomas at tight end. They have a decent offensive line. It's not a great offensive line, but it's good enough for Aaron Rodgers. He gets rid of the ball quick. And like you said, Mike, they have a top 5 defense right now. If they can just get a top 10 offense, they're going to be very, very tough to beat no matter who they play.
Yeah, I'm wondering if now because when you brought that up to me on Friday about is it definitely going to be Fitzpatrick or is Taylor Heineke in play there? And I'm thinking, could they be an under the radar team to call up Green Bay if this thing goes really, really south? Which I don't know. Where do you feel that thing is now?
Here's the thing with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he's going to budge, and I don't think Green Bay's going to budge. And I don't blame Green Bay for not budging because Aaron Rodgers is under contract. If he wants to retire, go ahead. It saves them cap space. But if he wants to show up, fine. It's almost like the Zach Ertz stuff, only he's not threatening to retire. So I'm just looking at it as I don't think Aaron Rodgers is really going to show up till training camp if he shows up at all. I really do think he wants Green Bay to trade him. The thing is, besides Denver and Washington, as we just mentioned, what other decent teams are there for him to go? Does he really want to go to the Las Vegas Raiders?
I don't know. Does adding Aaron Rodgers make Vegas I don't want to say.
I don't think he makes them any better. Honestly, I think they're fine with Derek Carr. That's not the problem there. They have a problem with defense and offensive line. That's their problem. So I don't think he makes Vegas better. I think he makes Denver extremely better. I think he makes Washington extremely better. But does Green Bay want to trade him in the conference?
Yeah, they're in such a tough spot here. So, does he retire? Because if he retires, isn't there better flexibility cap wise or
Absolutely. Yeah, there's like $33 million on the table cap wise.
Right. So does he want to help them out and just say, all right, I'll retire. I'm going to help you out in the process? I feel like he just wants to stick it to them all the way up and down.
The thing is, how are you sticking it to him? You should have did this back in February if you wanted to stick it to him. I just feel like he's between a rock and a hard place right now. It's either you show up, you don't show up and get fined, or you retire.
The catch-22, as we talked a little bit this on Friday, and I said, well, don't trade him. Don't acquiesce to him. Just, if he wants to sit out, great, sit out. But the problem becomes now you're getting nothing for him, and he just sits out. I mean, and I say nothing because you can get a bump. It's not like you're just saying, oh, all we're going to get is a 4th-round pick, so we'll just sit out then. You're getting 1st-round picks back in return if you decide, look, we can't fix this, but we might as well benefit from it.
If I'm Washington.
That's the hard part.
If I'm Washington, and look, they've done this before kind of with RG3, a decade ago. I would just say to Green Bay, look, here's the deal. We'll give you 3 first-round picks for him. Right now. We'll give you next year. We'll give you 2023, 2024. If you're Green Bay, you got to consider that, right?
Yes.
I mean, that might be
That's why we're in a tough spot, Geoff, is because if you're playing hardball and you say, I'm not going to send – because here's the 2 problem. If I'm Green Bay, do I want to send him to another team and then have the possibility of him biting me in the rear end? No. But then I'm getting nothing in return. But if I send him somewhere – yes, what you just said, I have to take 3 first-round picks.
I almost feel like the Green Bay Packers, when I'm selling my Sixers tickets, I can sell them for a set price. I know people will buy them, but I also know I can get more than the price I'm selling them for. So you hold back. And maybe that's what Green Bay's doing, but, they're just not playing their hand or they're working something behind the scenes. I think, truthfully, Green Bay wants Jordan Love to sit on the bench another year. Truthfully.
Well, if I'm Green Bay, I want Aaron Rodgers to play for me too.
This is what I would tell Aaron Rodgers. Look, here's the deal. Let's give this one more shot. One more shot. We play this year.
Hasn't it gone too far?
No matter what, we'll trade you this offseason.
Have they gone too far?
What was that?
Are they at the point of no return?
They might be. It's almost like they're not willing to get divorced yet, but he's already separated. He's out of the house.
Right.
In final.
Man, I and it's funny because I feel like this is going to go on for how many more weeks here? 6, 7 more weeks before we get to camp. He ain't showing up to camp, right?
Yeah. And it's going to be a story every day he's not at camp. When it's really going to blow up? When he plays that match with Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson.
When's that?
July 5th or something like that. It's that week. It's that 4th of July week.
Okay. 4th of July weekend. So you got another couple of weeks before we get to that point.
Yeah. And Aaron Rodgers is a weird dude. We don't know what he's going to say. He might be Aaron Rodgers unplugged at that point.
Well, and what's the shirt say? He's a complicated fella.
Yeah. It's You know, this is what I don't get about Green Bay. Why doesn't Gunacoste and Mark Murphy and all their executives just keep their mouths shut? They're not helping their cause.
No, but at the same time, that thing is just like at first I'm thinking, okay, he wants to be traded. We heard this about Russell Wilson, and that kind of went away. Now Russell Wilson's fine, and you felt like it was going to get to this point. But the more and more it's going down this road because of what we just said about Rodgers. He's such a quirky guy. I almost feel like Rodgers at the point. But if he doesn't play, he's leaving like $35 million out there.
By the way, I love how Russell Wilson handled it. He just nipped it in the bud right away. Like, Russell Wilson, I was answering questions about the NFC West going into last week, and I said, well, Russell Wilson's going to speak Friday. Let's see what he said. I love how he worded it. Look, I really don't want to be traded, but if you were to trade me, this is where I want to go. And I think that's just how far as it went. I think Seattle said, well, we don't want to trade you. Okay, good. We'll work on that. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to be that guy. I think he's going to be like, yeah, I want out of here. I'm done.
Bizarre situation, man. And today was one of the first days where I was really like, this thing is really going to get kind of crazy. Because I'm just like, whatever. It's off-season stuff. People are trying to – but today I'm kind of like, man, the OTAs are kind of – and like you're getting to that period where he's going to have to – there's going to be a stare down coming in a couple weeks here where this thing's going to get real.
It's just going to get worse every day. It's almost like, I'm trying to think of the last time we've had something like that. Like Peyton Manning was a free agent, but it's almost like, okay, where's he going? Where's he visiting? Where's this guy? Aaron Rodgers can't visit. We just don't know. Like it's almost like a Brett Favre situation. Like, okay, he's gone, but where's he going?
We'll keep an eye on it because I'm telling you, like this Green Bay Packers, we always feel that like they're this model franchise in this small little town and everybody loves the football there and they never have any issues. They've got some big issues going on right now.
They win a lot. I'll say that. Jordan Love may be the next big thing. Who knows? But I don't think Green Bay really wants to find out this year. Maybe next year. I think they were hoping Aaron Rodgers would calm down, and it just hasn't.
That, and of course, we still have no idea. We haven't heard Deshaun Watson's name mentioned in almost 2 months now.
I think we just got to wait for the legal stuff to clear up. I mean, the irony is, Mike, you could probably just give up a first-round pick for Deshaun Watson right now, and that's really low. But at the same time, you're pretty much just paying to deal with the headache.
I don't know that I'm giving up a first-round pick for him.
I don't think I am either.
I hear what you're saying, just to get him and just say, hey, we have his rights, but I got to find out what is what's going on with those legal situations.
Yeah, same here. It's you just don't know. Like if you're giving up a first round pick for a guy who may never play again, that's a bad deal. But if you give up a second or a third, I think you can live with that.
All right, at Jeff Kerr, CBS, covering the NFL. And of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. We will, by the way, the story today from the Eagles world is they seem to be constantly making a couple of news. Richard Rodgers last week, Nick Mullins today. For more details, go to 97.3ESPN.com. All right, Jeff, I'll see you, man.
Yeah, see you, Mike. It's going to be an interesting week, no doubt. It's a slow time for me, I will say that, but there's always something going on in the NFL. I'm always checking my phone.
Always something, man. It never seems to amaze us. All right, pal. We'll talk to you Wednesday.
It sounds great. Thanks, Mike.
All right, Jeff Kerr, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline as he does on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays to kind of give us a overview of the NFL. The roundup there is brought to you by Clark's Moving Storage, South Jersey. For your next local or long-distance move, Clark's Moving Storage is your first call. They're dependable and always show up online, clarksmoving.net. All right, when we come back, sound of the day. Good guests today, Mike McGarry, Paul Hudrick, Geoff Mosher, Bob Wankel. You guys out there did a good job on text and the stream. Don't forget game night tonight. Jason Blevins, our Sixers contributor, at 6:20. All right, sound of the day here, the 5 as we get ready to wrap up the show. Don't forget, Sports Bash is brought to you by East Coast Roofing, Siding, Windows, serving all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up online, eastcoastroofing.com. Busy show today. Appreciate everybody who's been a part of it. If you're watching the show on the stream, thanks to you. If you're listening on the radio, appreciate you as well. Don't forget, game night's up next, getting you ready for the Sixers and the Hawks. Our Sixers contributor, Jason Blevins, will join us on the show, or join Josh, I should say, on the show. I will not be helping him with that show tonight. He can handle it all by himself.
I was gonna say after last Friday, you're out. You're done dealing with me.
I'm just out today. I'm tired.
Gotcha.
Long weekend, man. I actually was out and about this weekend. It's like the first time I was out at in a huge crowd. It was packed out this weekend. I was outside on a deck somewhere, but it was mobbed.
Yeah. People are
live music.
They're stir crazy. They're
Yeah, it's good to hear live music though. All right, here we go. Paul Hudrick, Bucks or Nets? Huh.
In a weird way, I get what you mean, because I think the issue with the Bucks is they have three no one's stopping Joel Embiid, but Brook Lopez is a better option than anybody the Nets have. And then you look down the line, Tobias would probably have to face either Drew Holiday or Middleton. Neither of those are great matchups. And Ben Simmons would get Giannis, which is a terrible matchup for Ben.
So, am I the only one that thinks I almost rather play the Nets?
I don't think you're the only one, but I think you're the only one who's willing to admit it out loud.
Voicing it?
Yeah, because I think most people have been indoctrinated into the idea that the Nets are the best team in the East and all this kind of stuff. But yet we're seeing right now something I've been saying on game night for months now, which is I have no confidence that this Nets team is going to be healthy for an entire postseason series. And now it's going to be Durant and the band of misfit toys versus the Bucks the next game.
Yeah, just the matchups defensively, I think the Bucks present more problems than the Nets do.
They absolutely do. And I think the one that you guys brought up about Giannis versus Ben Simmons, if there's anyone who's going to neutralize Ben Simmons' ability offensively and defensively, it's Giannis.
Paul Hudrick, Charles Barkley, defending Embiid. Break it down.
I heard Barkley bring up this point. I don't know if I 100% agree with it, but do you let Joel Embiid just go off and not double him, and not let the rest of the team, keep the rest of the team down, and let Joel Embiid do his thing and focus on everyone else? Maybe you go back to that strategy, working one game, kind of, or one half, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's tough because you're talking about a guy in Joel Embiid who's an MVP candidate. And if I were a coach, I would be doubling him on every single touch.
Right. So do we just let him have his score 40 again like you did in game one?
I think it's a great conversation to have because of the fact that I don't think there's a specific right answer. You look what the Sixers are doing to the Hawks. Jason Blevins and I are talking about this coming up on game night. The Sixers have employed a great defensive strategy in the last two games to neutralize Trae Young's ability to impact the game. Mike, I don't think it's a coincidence. The Sixers have won by 16 points in both game 2 and game 3 each. I don't think it's a coincidence.
Well, they don't have an answer for him. So we don't have an answer. We don't have a way. Now, I brought up the possibility of saying, hey, take out Capella and just go with 5 shooters and having Embiid kind of be in no man's land. Is that your best option? I don't know that works either. Though.
I don't know if it works either, but it's definitely an interesting conversation to have because if you're an NBA team that is right now in the postseason and you are serious about trying to win an NBA championship, the question you have to ask is, when you play the Sixers, whoever you are, what do you do about Joel Embiid?
Yeah.
And I don't know if, as you guys mentioned, every team might not have the right answer to it, but every team needs to at least have an answer to it.
Well, here's the thing. They don't have an answer. They also don't have an answer for Simmons.
Correct.
That's a big problem. They have 2 guys that they don't have an answer for. Most teams, the Nets have no answer for Embiid. They don't have a great answer for Simmons. The Bucks have an answer for both of them. You're not getting every answer to the test, but you're at least cheating off somebody.
Right. You might not get an A, but you might be able to get a B-.
Yeah, so that's why this Bucks team is kind of interesting. And I feel like we all wrote them off and felt like, the Nets are better than you, or the Nets have dominated the series, and maybe we overreacted to that. But remember, there was a time there we were saying this might be the best Bucks team for the last couple of weeks. I mean, last couple of years that they've had.
Hey, man, sometimes things just need to break your way, and they're breaking the Bucks' way right now.
Game night's up next. Our Sixers contributor, Jason Blevins. I know he's working on a story about why the Sixers defense has been better. So I'm interested to hear his comments on that. Tonight, it's the Sixers and it's the Hawks. It's only on 97.3 ESPN. We have that for you. The cover starts at 7. Tom McGinnis at 7:30. And I'm Mike Gill. This has been the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Have a great night, everybody. I'm back tomorrow at 2 o'clock here on the Sports Bash.